Chapter 1706. Every newcomer would excitedly mention an explosive event, but they would immediately be dampened by others. Wasn't it just a trivial matter, like having sex in the open? However, this Tong Lin was really bold in his lust, actually daring to have sex in the open in Changsun Liang's residence. TSK. He was destined to be in trouble, and everyone naturally couldn't be bothered to waste time on him. They all went about their own business, contacting friends that they had not seen for a long time, or finding new friends. Black Moon City was really too big, and normally, there was indeed very little chance for everyone to gather together. More and more people arrived. The main character, Changsun Liang, had yet to show himself, and the Empress had already become the absolute center of attention. Everyone crowded around her. Firstly, it was to curry favor, and secondly, it was to find out which great sect the Empress had come from. The Empress couldn't be bothered with them at all, and Ling Han became the spokesperson, sending everyone away one by one, but did not coldly offend anyone. Who knew, these people might be of use in the future. Moreover, she had not offended them, so what need was there to speak ill of her? After more than an hour, Changsun Liang finally arrived. The Holy Sun has arrived. A soft call rang out, and the entire main hall immediately fell silent. Light footsteps rang out, and a young man wearing a purple gold crown on his head walked out with large strides from a door. He was tall, and his eyes were extremely bright like two suns, causing others to not dare to stare at him directly. His aura was also incredibly powerful, especially within a radius of 3 feet around him. His aura had all turned solid, forming multiple true dragons, multiple true phoenixes, as well as cheilants, black tortoises, and other divine beasts that were continuously rolling about. Behind him was that red-haired young man, his expression completely fanatical as if in his eyes, Changsun Liang was a god, and not a human. Greetings, Holy Sun. A considerable number of people knelt down, and the others also stood up, clasping their hands in greeting. This was a peerless King Tier, his natural talent superior to that of a 2-star force. Even if it was a prodigy that had walked out from a 3-star great city, he would have no fear. He could match, or even surpass them. Ling Han and the Empress naturally did not stand up. With their pride, how could they possibly bow down to a cultivator of the same cultivation level? This caused the surrounding people to feel anxious. If the Holy Sun was enraged, would he attack them as well? Rise, Changsun Liang said calmly, and pressed his hands down, indicating that everyone could sit down. He swept an eye over Ling Han and the Empress, a smile appearing on the corners of his lips. He clasped his hands and said, Fairy Wan Xing. The Empress did not look him in the eye, and merely nodded slightly in greeting. It was precisely this kind of arrogance that made everyone firmly believe that the Empress had to be the holy daughter of some great sect. My strength and talent aren't any weaker than yours, but my status is higher. Naturally, I can put on airs. Changsun Liang could be said to have suffered a rebuff, but he behaved very magnanimously, breaking into a smile that was as warm as the spring breeze. Come, I have prepared some meager wine. Everyone, do not stand on ceremony. He glanced around and frowned, because the hall was almost full except for one person, Tong Lin. He had already appeared, but Tong Lin had yet to arrive. This was even more extravagant than him. Changsun Liang couldn't help but look displeased and asked, Where is Tong Lin? Some people had already started drinking, but when they heard this, they immediately spat it out and coughed. What's going on? Changsun Liang looked to the side, and the red-haired young man understood. He immediately nodded respectfully and walked down the stage. After making some inquiries, his expression instantly became incredibly strange. Tong Lin is actually having a sex in the bushes outside. You haven't seen a woman for a few hundred years, so is there a need to be so thirsty? The red-haired young man hurriedly returned to the stage and whispered in Changsun Liang's ear. He had not finished speaking when Changsun Liang couldn't help but look furious, and almost slammed a palm on the table. Tong Lin, that bastard, actually had a sex in his garden, and it was publicly known. Wasn't this openly humiliating him? How audacious! It could not be said that Changsun Liang's ability to maintain his composure was bad, but this matter was really infuriating. It was as if someone had deliberately defecated on your bed. Who wouldn't have a dark expression? However, Chang Sun Liang did not explode. He only acted as if he had not discovered this matter, and began to greet everyone. He was a holy son, and was destined to inherit the position of sect master in future. So he was naturally an expert in guiding the atmosphere. Very soon, he made everyone forget about the matter of Tong Lin, and the topic of conversation was completely under his control. Chang Sun Liang was also very interested in the empress. After all, she was the only young king tier that could rival him, and her identity was also very mysterious. It was possible that she was the holy daughter of some great sect. Just ask, who could not like such a woman with nature-defying natural talent, noble status, perfect figure, and unparalleled bearing? Even without showing her true appearance, the empress had already conquered the hearts of countless people. Fairy Wan Xing, after this ends, would you be interested in studying martial art with me? Chang Sun Liang did not hold back at all, and launched a fierce offensive at the empress. The empress could not be bothered. If Chang Sun Liang said he wanted to spar with her, she might be interested in a battle. Ling Han laughed and said, "My Wan never spends time alone with strangers. If Brother Chang Sun insists, I can take her place." How are you going to take her place? Chang Sun Liang showed a sliver of displeasure. The words "my Wan" directly stabbed at his heart. But what could he do? What position did he have to retort? A thought flashed in his mind, and he immediately had an idea. He turned to the red-haired young man, and used his divine sense to speak. Then he smiled and said, "How can a gathering of us cultivators lack sparring and competition? Holy Sun is right." Everyone hurriedly nodded. They naturally did not dare to undermine him. "Ling Han, I challenge you." The red-haired young man immediately stepped out, and shouted at Ling Han. Ling Han was surprised. At first, he had wanted to be a quiet and handsome man, only eating and drinking, and seeing the young prodigies of Black Moon City. But someone actually wanted to challenge him. And he had not shown his might yesterday, so others would think that he was easy to bully, right? All right. He nodded, his face filled with a smile. "Qi Long, be careful when you attack, and do not kill anyone," Chang Sun Liang said to the red-haired young man. The red-haired young man understood. This was Chang Sun Liang's instruction. As long as he did not kill anyone, he did not need to hold back. He nodded and respectfully said, "Yes, Lord Holy Sun." He leaped out of the main hall and said, "Ling Han, come out for a battle." Ling Han first picked up a mouthful of food, and then drank a mouthful of wine. Then he said to the empress, "Wife, I will be back soon." The empress nodded gently, and then took the initiative to kiss him. This caused everyone to die of jealousy. At first, they had thought that the empress was an icy beauty that was cold and proud to the core. But they had not thought that she would burst into a bright and beautiful smile for a man, so gentle that it was like, "This lucky guy, quickly go and die." Chapter 1708. If Tong Lin knew about this after his death, he would definitely be incredibly depressed. Why did Chang Sun Liang want to kill him? There was no reason at all. He was startled awake by the shockwaves from the battle between Ling Han and the red-haired young man. The moment he woke up, he discovered his embarrassing state, and hurriedly took out some clothes from his spatial god tool to change into. He ran over in a hurry to complain. He believed that Chang Sun Liang would definitely avenge him, but he had never imagined that Chang Sun Liang would actually kill him with a single palm strike, without another word. He was really unlucky to the extreme. Fresh blood was still splattering in the air, and a few drops landed on Lu Muyu's face, causing her sprinting steps to come to an abrupt halt. Only now did she discover that Tong Lin had died, and he had actually been killed by a single palm strike from Chang Sun Liang. What was going on? Her face was pale in fright, and her legs were trembling. She feared that Chang Sun Liang would follow up with another strike and kill her as well. "Lord Holy Sun, spare me! Lord Holy Sun, spare me!" She knelt down, tears streaming down her face. She was indeed an unreasonable and incredibly savage person. But that depended on who she was in front of. Chang Sun Liang showed an expression of disdain. This had to be the bitch that had had a wild fight with Tong Lin. Such a person could actually come to his residence? "Scram!" he rebuked loudly. Yes, yes, yes. Lu Miu did not even dare to say a word, and hurriedly turned around and ran. Chang Sun Liang took a breath, and controlled his emotions. Only then did he realize that he had been a bit overboard in his attack just now. No matter what, the Tong clan was still a fourth severance force. But since he had already killed her, with his personality, he would not dwell on it further. He turned to Ling Han, and a sliver of a smile tugged at the corners of his lips. Pa pa pa, he began clapping his hands. Marvelous, truly marvelous. Everyone was speechless. You were so angry that you killed Tong Lin, and now you were clapping your hands and praising him. This was too fake. However, this was the holy son of the Black Moon sect. Who would dare step forward to rebuke him? Chang Sun Liang continued. Who wants to spar with this person? No one answered. From Ling Han's previous performance, he was definitely on the same level as Yuan Xingping and Dan Yujing, and his strength was extremely strong. Although Black Moon City was a 2-star city, and the number of geniuses it had was much more than that of a 1-star city, there were not many who were at Yuan Xingping's level. Moreover, even so, he might not have the confidence to win against Ling Han. No wonder the incredibly proud empress had fallen for him. He was definitely not a good-for-nothing who only had good looks. Chang Sun Liang's expression was slightly awkward. No one was actually willing to make a move. With his status, could it be that he had to deal with Ling Han personally? Chang Sun Liang humphed in displeasure. A dignified holy son did not even have this bit of face? Ho ho! I am untalented, and have come to seek guidance from this brother. A young man stepped out from the crowd. He first bowed slightly towards Chang Sun Liang, and then only turned towards Ling Han. Chang Sun Liang's expression immediately became much better. This young man was the genius of the Xiang clan, Xiang Wenkuan. His abilities were very strong, and he was able to obtain his acknowledgement. With Xiang Wenkuan's help, things would be stable. Ling Han smiled calmly and said, Come, then let me give you some guidance. Xiang Wenkuan showed a sliver of irritation. He had only said teach out of courtesy, but he had not thought that the other would actually take it seriously. Humph, a country bumpkin from a tiny 1-star city, really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. True, after having some ability, he would naturally be invincible in a small city, thinking that there were no elites in the world, and becoming insufferably arrogant. He really did not know what he was talking about. Then let's battle. He could not be bothered to waste words, and crooked his finger at Ling Han. Ling Han smiled slightly, raised a finger and said, One move. Hiss, everyone sucked in a breath. You wanted to take down Xiang Wenkuan in one move? Where did your courage come from? Xiang Wenkuan, on the other hand, laughed out of extreme fury and said, Then one move. He stared at Ling Han, and channeled his origin power. A sword-shaped mark appeared on his brow, and an ancient and desolate pressure spread out, making everyone feel as if a large rock was pressing down on their hearts. Incredibly uncomfortable. He used a powerful move. This was the power of his bloodline, and could draw upon the power of his ancient ancestors, increasing his battle prowess by a great deal. Winning in one move. Ling Han's hands were clasped behind his back, and he allowed his opponent to prepare a powerful move. He had no intention of interfering, nor did he have any intention of preparing a powerful move. Wild, everyone said in their hearts. That was Xiang Wenkuan. And even if it were Yuan Xingping or Dan Yujing facing him, they would have to be 1,000,000 times more cautious. If they did not go all out, then they would definitely be instantly killed into dregs. Ice-sealing godly sword. Xiang Wenkuan gave a loud shout, and stretched out a hand to point at his forehead. Xiao. That sword-shaped mark actually transformed into a godly sword that slashed out. Instantly, the temperature of the surroundings dropped madly, and everyone nearby felt as if their blood was about to freeze. When they wanted to move, they discovered that their limbs were already frozen, and a thick layer of frost had formed on their bodies. Hiss, this was only an aftershock, and its might was already so terrifying. Then if they were really struck by this ice-sealing godly sword, would they still have a way out? This sword was indescribably fast. But Ling Han smiled faintly, and calmly pointed out a finger, which just happened to touch the tip of this sword. So accurate, so fast. Everyone exclaimed in their hearts, but immediately shook their heads. The coldness exuded by this sword was so terrifying. And you actually met it with your bare hands? Wasn't that seeking death? Pa! The ice sword immediately shattered. But the coldness was also transmitted to Ling Han's body, and he was instantly sealed in ice. Xiang Wenquan couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. This was the result of angering him. Boom! A flame ignited on Ling Han's body, and the layer of ice instantly melted. Ling Han continued to point out with his finger, and it transformed into the size of a mountain peak, pressing down towards Xiang Wenquan. Xiang Wenquan paled in shock. The area covered by this finger was too large, and there was no way for him to dodge at all. He could only explode with his full power, and repeatedly throw punches at the sky. Pung pung pung. Punches after punches landed on that finger, yet it was completely useless. The giant finger descended with an unstoppable momentum. Pung! Xiang Wenquan's figure immediately disappeared. When Ling Han raised his finger, he saw that Xiang Wenquan was already sprawled on the ground. One move as expected, he had only used one move. As strong as Xiang Wenquan was, he had already prepared a powerful move for a very long time. But he had still been dealt with in a single move. Just how wide was the gap in strength? It should be known that Ling Han had not made any preparations at all, and had only casually thrown out a finger. This time, even Changsun Liang's expression changed. He looked at Ling Han and said, 3 eras ago, a Mao Dai appeared in Dark Moon City, sweeping aside the younger generation, and was hailed as an unprecedented prodigy. If you ask me, you are much stronger than Mao Dai in the past. This was a very high evaluation. Mao Dai had swept aside all the Saint Kings in the past, and rose up powerfully. Even today, people were still talking about him enthusiastically. This was indeed a super prodigy. Even the Fu clan was interested in recruiting him, and his future achievements would definitely not be limited to the 4th severance. But Changsun Liang actually said that Ling Han was even stronger than Mao Dai in the past. Wasn't this going too far? You are worthy of me personally dealing with you, Changsun Liang declared proudly. He was already standing at the peak stage of Saint King, and he only had to wait for the severing mundane pool to open, and he would be able to sever mundane tier, and become a celestial. In a battle of equals, he was confident that he was invincible. More refreshing reading on mobile. Chapter 1709. Ling Han smiled and said, I've always been an easygoing person. Since you want to fight, I'll play with you. Play who dared to say that they could play around with Changsun Liang? For example, Mao Dai was indeed a super prodigy, but it was not that there were no prodigies that could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. For example, there was Ding Yaolong in Dark Moon City. However, Ding Yaolong had a clan behind him, so it was definitely impossible for him to be nurtured by the Fu clan or the Black Moon sect, unlike Mao Dai, who had become a member of the Fu clan or the Black Moon sect after marrying into their clan. However, if Mao Dai suppressed his cultivation level to the Genesis tier, he would definitely not be a match for Changsun Liang. This was a genius that only appeared once every several tens of thousands of eras. No one knew just how strong he was when he was at the same cultivation level, because no one at the same cultivation level could force him to use all of his power. Changsun Liang chuckled. He was in a high position, so there was naturally no need for him to lower himself to Ling Han's level. He put his hands behind his back and slowly walked out, saying, I'll let you have 3 moves. I'll let you have 10 moves. Ling Han smiled. Changsun Liang's smile involuntarily stiffened. This was really boundlessly arrogant. He didn't say anything else. Instead, he pointed a finger at Ling Han. Wang! A terrifying might surged out, and it was as if the heavens were about to collapse. Ling Han similarly tapped out with a finger to receive Changsun Liang's attack. Pung! The 2 attacks were instantly disintegrated. He did not seize the opportunity to counterattack, and instead abided by his previous agreement, allowing Changsun Liang to make 10 moves first. After that strike, there was no more sound in the surroundings. Ling Han had already displayed powerful ability, easily defeating the red-haired young man and Xiang Wenquan. But there was still not a single person who thought that he could oppose Changsun Liang. Changsun Liang was invincible among his peers. But now, Ling Han had actually blocked a strike from Changsun Liang. Though it was only a casual strike, it was clear that Ling Han had not used his full power. Could it be that a third super-invincible king was about to appear in Black Moon City? Chang Sunliang smiled and flicked his fingers. Xiao, another flash of saber ray slashed over. Ling Han shot out a flash of sword chi, easily dispersing Chang Sunliang's second attack. 3 moves, 4 moves, 5 moves, and soon 10 moves had passed. Chang Sunliang once again crossed his hands behind his back and said, 10 moves have passed, make your move. Ling Han did not hold back any longer and leaped out. He did not use any celestial techniques, and similarly only relied on his feet and fists to attack. Chang Sunliang dodged and parried, but did not counterattack, and also allowed him 10 moves. Chang Sunliang was proud, and did not deign to take advantage of Ling Han. After 10 moves, both of them revealed serious expressions. Although they hadn't used their full strength and hadn't engaged in an intense confrontation, when experts exchanged blows, how could they not see each other's depths with these few moves? A formidable opponent, this was the label the two gave each other. Wind-piercing finger. Chang Sunliang pressed his finger down towards Ling Han. Though he had struck out with his finger like this before, he had not circulated his celestial technique. Now he pointed out with a finger, and the light of the great path condensed. It was incomparably resplendent and shot towards Ling Han. Ling Han did not dare to be careless. Though he was confident that with his physique, he could completely take this kind of attack head-on. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he did not want others to know exactly how strong his physique was. He shot out a punch, and the apocalyptic lightning spread out. Hung long long. His fist was completely covered in lightning, and he returned a violent punch towards Chang Sunliang. The light of great path split apart the sea of lightning, but similarly, all of its might was dispersed by the power of lightning. Shwa! The sea of lightning split apart and passed by Chang Sunliang's side, and did not cause the slightest bit of damage. The further probing from both sides still ended in a tie, and this caused their expressions to become slightly more serious. Aside from the Empress, this was the first time that Ling Han had encountered a strong opponent of the same cultivation level, and this caused a blazing fighting spirit to rise in him. He took the initiative to launch an attack, and his figure shot out. Using his finger as a sword, he used the lightning sword technique. This was incredibly fast, and Chang Sunliang was caught off guard. Suddenly, he appeared to be in a sorry state. However, as expected of a king tier of the younger generation, he did not panic even though he was panicking. His fist swung out continuously, and delivered one attack after another, preventing Ling Han from getting close. Only after a few moves, he had recovered and adapted to this kind of attack. This kind of adaptability caused even Ling Han to nod internally. He could be called a rare prodigy, so he indeed had real ability. However, if that was not the case, what would be so interesting about it? It's my turn. Chang Sunliang gave a battle cry, and suddenly exhaled, turning into innumerable wind blades that sliced towards Ling Han. These wind blades were incredibly frightening, and there was the light of great path flickering within them. There were multiple patterns throbbing about, and the strength of their destructive power was practically unimaginable. Everyone was stunned, so it turned out that Chang Sunliang had not been defending blindly just now, but had also taken the opportunity to accumulate power in preparation for a counterattack. Otherwise, there was absolutely no way that he could release such a powerful attack just like that. Ling Han acted as if he had not seen it, and charged towards Chang Sunliang. In the instant that the wind blades struck his body, he used the banishing technique on himself. In the blink of an eye, his figure appeared again. With his present grasp of the banishing technique, this alternate dimension was already incredibly stable. At least, it was not something that Chang Sunliang could shatter with a single blow. He had already charged in front of Chang Sunliang, and threw out a punch at the latter. Iron Shield. Chang Sunliang humphed, and raised his hands in front of him, blocking this punch of Ling Han's. Ling Han was surprised. He actually had not been able to shatter Chang Sunliang's defense with a single punch. The latter was a little strong. Chang Sunliang took the opportunity to counterattack. A flash of golden light shot out from his eyes, sweeping out towards Ling Han's face. Ling Han used lightning flash, and his figure rapidly retreated, dodging this attack. Everyone's breathing had stopped. In the short span of a few breaths, Ling Han and Changsun Liang had already switched between offense and defense quite a few times. Every time it was someone's turn to be the main attacker, everyone would think that the other person would not be able to hold on. But the result was exactly the opposite. That person not only held on, he even took the opportunity to launch a counterattack. What a frightening pair. They were really too strong. That Changsun Liang was so strong was within expectations. Even if such a prodigy was placed in the Fu clan, it would probably be very difficult for him to find an opponent who could match him at the same cultivation level. But how could Ling Han also be so strong? It did not make sense. Exhilarating, Changsun Liang's fighting spirit was also ignited. One celestial technique after another was at his fingertips, and he had practically dabbled in all sorts of regulations. It was really a wonder which regulations he had primarily cultivated. Ling Han had also mastered quite a few immortal techniques. When he was in high spirits, he activated the immovable deity metal body, great divine ability. He stretched out his 6 arms and activated several immortal techniques at the same time. His battle prowess skyrocketed by 10 times. Changsun Liang did not hold back either. His head full of black hair shot towards the sky, and a small person walked out from between his brows. It was only the size of a fist, and it waved 2 divine swords that were inch-long, slicing out towards Ling Han. Although this person was small and his sword was short, it made Ling Han extremely fearful, not to mention being directly slashed by the divine sword. He didn't even want to come into contact with the sword light. "That's the graveyard ghost sword," someone exclaimed, his face pale. Chapter 17:10. The burial ghost sword was not a true treasured tool, but rather a secret technique. Legend had it that Changsun Liang had obtained it in an ancient site, and only he alone could cultivate it. That was because when he had entered that ancient site, his spirit had been strengthened by an ancient thing, or perhaps fused with it. In any case, even the great elites of the Black Moon sect had not figured out the situation clearly. In short, after this celestial technique was cultivated, a small person would appear between the brows, wielding 2 swords and possessing incredibly frightening might. As long as one was struck, it could directly destroy one's spirit and send one to hell. Even ghosts could be buried. What more humans? The burial ghost sword appeared, and everyone felt waves of terror and unease, as if a blade was pressed against their necks, capable of destroying their spirit and taking their lives at any moment. They all involuntarily activated their origin power shields, but still felt that it was not safe enough, and wanted nothing more than to set up a few hundred formations in the surroundings. Changsun Liang charged over, and that small person took the lead, swinging the 2 swords and slashing out one after another, magnificent sword rays after another. Ling Han pressed out with a hand, and the darkness of the paramount night spread out, trapping Changsun Liang. Xiao, that small person, was not affected in the slightest, and charged out from the darkness, its 2 swords slashing towards Ling Han. Ling Han shot out a punch, but the small person was as if invulnerable, actually not affected in the slightest, and continued to swing its swords over. This was formed from the spirit, and was not affected by pure power. Ling Han showed a sliver of a smile, and a strong sense of pride rose up. "Then let's compete in spirit." Z. Lightning surged around his body, but upon closer inspection, this was not tangible, but rather an illusory image formed from the regulations of lightning. Ling Han had refined a great deal of heavenly tribulation fluid, and this could be considered the strongest attack below celestial level. When he had drunk it previously, not only had it dealt a huge blow to his physical body, even his spirit had been tempered. It could be said that every time he drank heavenly tribulation fluid to comprehend regulations of lightning, it was his spirit undergoing a test. And his spirit was tempered with the indestructible heaven scroll. So how stable was it? It steadily resisted the violent power of the heavenly tribulation. Now his spirit also carried the power of the heavenly tribulation. Come. With a thought, his spirit also turned into a small person, identical to him. His hands clenched into fists, and he charged towards the other small person wielding a sword. Bang bang bang, the two imps fought. Because they were both divine souls, they could fight against each other. This was a different kind of battle, and it was even more dangerous. After all, they were formed from divine souls. Although they weren't complete divine souls, if they were injured, it would definitely cause great damage to their bodies. With a long howl, Changsun Liang broke through the darkness and appeared as the holy son of a sect, and a young king tier that would only appear once every several trillion years. How could he possibly be trapped so easily? Ling Han rushed up and battled fiercely with Changsun Liang. There were clearly two people, but they were separated into two battlefields. Both sides were extremely intense and dangerous. The divine soul was the spirit of the physical body. Without the divine soul, a martial artist was just an empty shell, while the physical body was the carrier of the divine soul. Without the physical body, the divine soul was like a rootless root, with no place to reside. Everyone's hair stood on end. No matter if they had been struck by the attacks of Ling Han and Changsun Liang, or had been struck by the two miniature figures, then either their physical bodies would have been destroyed, or their souls would have been destroyed. In short, if they were the ones fighting, who knew how many times they would have died by now? Meanwhile, Ling Han and Changsun Liang used their ultimate moves again and again. The two of them had cultivated every cultivation level below celestial level to an endlessly perfect level. Thus, the strength of their battle prowess was not only unimaginable for ordinary people, but also unexpectedly difficult to determine. Ling Han was strong in that he had merged the regulations of the two realms in the ancient realm, which allowed his battle prowess to far surpass others in the Genesis tier, and Changsun Liang had the advantage of a minor level. Presently, he had formed who knew how many billions of stars, and had an absolute advantage in terms of power. The two of them each had their own strengths, which just happened to cancel each other out, and they were locked in battle. It was rare for them to encounter a strong opponent, and as they fought, they actually developed a feeling of appreciation for each other. However, they were both too proud. Even if they shook hands and made up after this battle, they still had to decide who was stronger. I am the strongest. Sword light soared into the skies, celestial techniques illuminating the world. This battle did not last for too long, because it was too dangerous, and it was easy for people to be heavily injured. Only a little less than an hour later, their figures swayed, and they both retreated. There was no victor in the battle between their main bodies, but the divine sense and the miniature person had each given the other a blow. Ling Han had suffered a sword strike, while Changsun Liang's miniature person had been struck by a punch. The divine sense and the main body were of the same lineage. Changsun Liang's face immediately paled, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, his expression incredibly dispirited. Ling Han also trembled slightly, but his divine sense had been tempered by the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, so its ability to withstand blows was naturally excellent. Actually, it would only be a moment of discomfort, and it would be over. But now, he and Changsun Liang had already formed a friendship through their battle, so he planned to save the other's face. He forcefully forced out a mouthful of blood, causing his expression to become much more unsightly. How about we consider this battle a draw? Changsun Liang suppressed his injuries and smiled at Ling Han. In truth, he still had a powerful move that he had not used, but the price of using it would be even greater. Furthermore, it would be a battle of life and death, and it would be a battle of life and death. Now that he had formed a favorable impression of Ling Han through their battle, he naturally could not possibly do this for the sake of victory. Ling Han broke into a grin and replied, "All right." Changsun Liang walked over and warmly placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Let's go drink." Drink. The two of them laughed loudly and walked towards the main hall. This caused everyone to be puzzled. Just then, they had been fighting so fiercely that they wanted nothing more than to kill the other. So why were they putting their arms around each other's shoulders now, as if they were good friends? They did not understand. That was because they did not understand the loneliness of a true king-tier prodigy. It was difficult to find an opponent at the same cultivation level, and now they had finally encountered someone that they could put up a fight with. So how excited was that? The Empress showed an expression of displeasure. Are you stealing my man? She quickly walked forwards and Chang Sunliang noticed her. He turned around with a smile and said, Sister-in-law, I was too rash just now. If I have offended you in any way, please forgive me. Xiao. The Empress did not allow him to finish his words, and had already grabbed him, casually tossing him out. Then, she wrapped her arms around Ling Han's waist, as if to announce that this man belonged to her. Yet everyone was stunned. Just how terrifying was this strength? Though Chang Sunliang was injured, and though he had not expected that the Empress would suddenly make a move, to be able to toss Chang Sunliang out with a single move. Was there a second person that could do this? This mysterious beauty was the true number one elite below the severing mundane tier. Regarding this, Ling Han also admitted it. At present, even if he relied on his powerful physique, he could at most fight the Empress to a draw. After all, he was a minor level lower, but when he also stepped into the Saint King tier, then even if the Empress and Chang Sunliang joined forces, he would still be able to suppress them. Chang Sunliang gritted his teeth as he crawled to his feet. There was a bitter smile on his face, but he was not angry. It was really very difficult for him to be angry at the Empress. Chapter 17:12. Long Gaofei's expression immediately darkened. He actually dared to kick down their doors. Didn't he know that the Holy Sun was also here? If he offended the Holy Sun, who would bear the responsibility? How dare you? He shouted harshly. The old man who entered had a face full of killing intent. He swept an eye over Long Gaofei and calmly said, Have that evil brat Ling Han come out. When Long Gaofei heard this, his expression instantly became incredibly strange. This brat was too capable, wasn't he? Previously, he had instructed repeatedly to keep a low profile, and not to cause trouble. But Ling Han was good, and silently became friends with the Holy Sun. This was at least a good thing. But this person definitely wasn't here to drink tea with Ling Han. This person was very strong. Long Gaofei frowned and said, Second severance. That old man showed an expression of pride. Tong clan Tong Jinyun. The Tong clan learned the truth from Lu Muyu, and they were naturally all furious. So Tong Lin actually died so unjustly, and even made a fourth severance Grand Elder apologize humbly to a Genesis tier. Even if Chang Sunliang was the Holy Sun, this was still a kind of humiliation. For the sake of the clan, the Tong clan's Grand Elder endured it. As the saying went, take a step back, and you'll see the world. But he had never imagined that all of this had been plotted by someone. A minor character from a mere one-star city actually caused the death of a Tong clan clansman, and even made the Tong clan's Grand Elder lower his head and apologize. If this vengeance wasn't avenged, how could the Tong clan still exist? Thus Tong Jinyan came over. He was a second severance elite, and was enough to suppress Long Gaofei. If he mobilized too much force, it wouldn't be too disrespectful to Ling Han. So it's Lord Tong. Long Gaofei clasped his hands in greeting. The four tiers of the severing mundane tier were like four peaks, and ascending different peaks would mean a completely different status. Thus, even though the two of them were only separated by a minor level, whether in terms of status or strength, the gap was astonishingly large. Enough nonsense, have that evil brat Ling Han come out, Tong Jinyan said darkly. He actually dared to trick their Tong clan. He really had eaten a leopard's gall. Today, no matter what, he would kill Ling Han, and let everyone know that the dignity of the Tong clan couldn't be challenged. Long Gaofei was full of confidence. He smiled calmly and said, Ling Han is currently accompanying an esteemed guest, and probably can't come out to see Lord. Tong Jinyan's eyes widened. What a joke. He was merely a brat in the Genesis tier. So what kind of esteemed guest could he have? In other words, what kind of esteemed guest could have a more powerful background than him? No wonder he dared to plot against the Tong clan. This brat was indeed arrogant. No, not only was that evil son arrogant, this old fellow was also quite arrogant. Otherwise, how could he have taught such a junior? Are you trying to brush me off? Tong Jinyan said coldly. Instantly the pressure was like a mountain. This glare was definitely enough to make a Genesis tier's legs go weak, and they would completely lose their battle prowess. But even if Long Gaofei was no match for the other party, He was still a first severance elite after all. No matter what, he could not possibly be intimidated by a single glare. He chuckled and said, I wouldn't dare. Ling Han is really accompanying an esteemed guest right now. Oh, then I'd like to see how this esteemed guest is treated. Tong Jinyan felt his anger rising. He decided in his heart that he would slap that esteemed guest as well. What distinguished guest? In his eyes, they were all trash. He strode forward, and Long Gaofei obviously couldn't stop him, so he could only follow behind. Peng. Tong Jinyan didn't ask Long Gaofei to point out which room was Ling Han's, either. He just directly kicked open the doors of the rooms one by one. In the first room, Wei Bo was expressionless. In the second room, Qin Henyu was expressionless. In the third room, everyone could hear the conversation outside, so they were prepared and did not panic. However, when they kicked open the sixth room, Ding Xiaoqin's expression was filled with resentment. He was really too innocent. He was originally an enemy of Ling Han, but because of his relationship with Ling Han, he had been implicated, and he was really wronged. But he was secretly praying in his heart that it would be best if Tong Jinyan could kill Ling Han with a single palm strike. There was only one room left. Peng. The door was kicked open, and 3 people appeared in the room. There were 2 men and 1 woman, and they sat facing each other. They were currently sipping tea and talking about something. You guys are so calm. Tong Jinyan humphed coldly and said, This esteemed guest, turn around, and let me have a look. Chang Sun Liang turned around as he was told, and looked at Tong Jinyan expressionlessly. Saint Sun. Tong Jinyan immediately cried out in surprise. The expression on her face was simply marvelous. It was simply changing in a myriad of colors. It was completely unimaginable that a person's face could change so many colors, and at such a fast speed. Chang Sun Liang smiled calmly and said, Now that you're here, what do you want? Though he was only in the Genesis tier, his status was there for all to see. He was the treasurer of the Black Moon sect, bearing the hopes of the powerful figures. If he was injured, even if it was only a scratch on his finger, that would be enough to make the sky collapse. Any random dividing soul tier elite would be enough to instantly flatten the Tong clan and forever disappear in history. Tong Jinyan was really regretful now. How could he possibly have thought that this distinguished guest would actually be Chang Sun Liang, a minor character from a 1-star city? How could he possibly be acquainted with the holy son of the Black Moon sect? Furthermore, this was Chang Sun Liang personally coming to pay a visit to Ling Han, which was even more inconceivable. I did not know that the holy son was here. If I have offended you, please forgive me, holy son. Tong Jinyan could only apologize now. If Chang Sun Liang really hardened his heart to deal with the Tong clan, then so what if the Tong clan was a part of the Black Moon sect? Chang Sun Liang said calmly, If this holy son is not here, you can barge in unscrupulously. Lord Tong, you have to know that this is the territory of the Holy Church, and not the private property of your Tong clan. These words were heavy, frightening Tong Jinyan so much that he knelt down in an instant, not even caring about his own face. If Chang Sun Liang wanted to investigate further, it would not just be a matter that concerned Tong Jinyan alone, but would instead involve the entire Tong clan. Please forgive me, Lord Holy Son. Chang Sun Liang was neither angry nor shocked, and remained calm throughout, displaying the control of a superior. Since the doors here were all broken by you, then it is up to you to repair them all. Lord Tong, are you convinced? I am. Lord Holy Sun's teaching is right. I am convinced. Tong Jinyan hurriedly lowered his head. Ling Han clicked his tongue in annoyance. Should he also go and get the title of Holy Sun to scare people? Go. Chang Sun Liang waved his hand. Tong Jinyan hurriedly crawled up from the ground and obediently went to repair the doors. Watching the old man repair the doors that had originally been broken one by one with unpracticed movements, everyone was tongue-tied, feeling as if their eyes were about to go blind. Meanwhile, Long Gaofei was secretly pleased. Little guy, weren't you very arrogant previously? Continue to be arrogant, idiot. After repairing the 10 doors, Tong Jinyan first excused himself to Chang Sun Liang, and only then did he flee dejectedly. Chang Sun Liang smiled and said, Brother Ling, I should also leave. Congratulations on obtaining the first place in the tournament this time. Though there were still a few more days before the tournament would begin, the result was already set in stone. He stood up, yet suddenly coughed, and spat out a mouthful of black blood. Chapter 17:13. Ling Han frowned and asked, Brother Changsuan's injuries have not healed yet. Previously, he had clashed with Changsun Liang's divine sense, and they had exchanged a blow. Ling Han was completely fine, but Changsun Liang was not as freakish as him. His divine sense had been severely wounded, and would not recover in a short while. Furthermore, it was very difficult to treat a wound of the divine sense with medicinal stones. Thankfully, this was the celestial realm, and saintly medicines were as common as free. He would definitely recover after a few months of recuperation, and there was no need to worry that it would affect his journey to the severing mundane pool a year later. But in the following few months, Changsun Liang's battle prowess definitely could not reach its peak condition. Thankfully, he was a king tier in the first place, and even if he could only use half of his battle prowess, he would be able to defeat all Genesis tiers. Your recovery ability makes even me envious. Changsun Liang shook his head. Everyone had been struck, but Ling Han looked as lively as a dragon. And how was he injured at all? Changsun Liang had just left, and Ling Han's expression was strange. He had truly touched the threshold of breaking through. There were great benefits in discussing Tao with him, especially the peak battle a few days ago, which allowed him to accumulate much experience. After digesting these experiences, he naturally took the final step in the realm of immortal level. He headed to an uninhabited mountain forest to receive the heavenly tribulation. Hung Long Long. The heavenly tribulation of the celestial realm was much stronger than that of the ancient realm, with the upper limit being celestial king tier. Ling Han did not dare to be impudent, and obediently accepted the baptism of the heavenly tribulation, not charging into the thunderclouds. However, after advancing into the celestial realm, his heavenly tribulation was much more normal, because there were actually many freaks like him in the celestial realm. Half a day later, he survived the heavenly tribulation, and his godly bones advanced another level, breaking through half a level, reaching the height of 1-star pseudo-divine metal. His present battle prowess was still far inferior to First Severance elites, but it would not be easy for First Severance Grand Elders to kill him, either. They could only slowly refine him with regulations, and wanting to directly wound him would be laughable. In truth, there was no pinnacle level in the Genesis tier. Forming more than 10 billion heavenly bodies was because they were unable to break through to the severing mundane tier. No matter how many heavenly bodies one formed, they would not be very strong after advancing into the severing mundane tier. At the level of the small world, martial art practitioners mainly cultivated strength, because the rules could not be touched. In the ancient realm, the strength of the spirit would increase, and the strength of the spirit was actually the grasp of the rules. The more powerful the laws one grasped, the more stable their divine soul would be. At the immortal level, the status of laws far surpassed power. This was the most powerful aspect of immortals. My physical body has been destroyed, so I'll just change to another body. My combat strength won't be affected too much. Of course, it wasn't the original body, so there would definitely be a problem with adaptability. His combat strength wouldn't be affected, but it was very likely that he would be cut off in the future. Thus, no matter how poor their bloodline was, almost no martial artist would be willing to give up and change their body to try again. The next step is the severing mundane tier. Ling Han took a deep breath. As long as he advanced into the severing mundane tier, he would be able to be called an elite even in the celestial realm. Unlike Genesis tiers, no matter how outstanding his performance was, he only possessed potential. Severing mundane tier Grand Elders had an unlimited lifespan. Merely from this point, it could be understood how difficult it was to take this step. In the celestial realm, saints were as common as dogs, and could be found everywhere. But severing mundane tier Grand Elders? There were only a few dozen in 1-star cities, and only a few thousand in 2-star cities. Compared to the colossal population, this number was really pitifully small. Now, Who else in the Genesis tier is a match for me? Ling Han stroked his chin. Unfortunately, limited by my cultivation level, I have no way of grasping celestial level regulations. Otherwise, I would be able to carve celestial level formations in my body, and even a first Severance Grand Elder could possibly be killed. Since he was idle, Ling Han carved more Saint King tier formations on the godly bones in his body, but it was useless no matter how many formations he carved. The battle prowess they could unleash was actually only 1/10,000th of his own. How fuck you strong have I become? Ling Han himself was dumbfounded. He had carved 999 Saint King tier formations in his body, but it was actually only 1/10,000th of his own battle prowess. If only Hunyo was still in the Genesis tier, I could spar with her and see what level of battle prowess the holy daughter of a top-notch sect has. The Rock Palace was a Celestial King tier level force, and Hunyo had also merged with the bloodline of the previous palace mistress, or some other random things, so she was definitely on the level of a top-notch holy son or holy daughter. Sigh. I've been in the celestial realm for a long time, but I actually don't even know if the Rock Palace is in the Eastern Celestial Realm or the Western Celestial Realm. What a failure. The Celestial Realm was too big. An immortal palace tier elite like the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire had only traveled through the territories of a few celestial kings. In this small place of 1 or 2 stars, it was actually very normal that he did not know where the Rock Palace was. Perhaps, after going to the Fu clan, I will at least be able to find out where the Rock Palace is, Ling Han murmured. He returned to his residence and could not help but spar with the Empress in the Black Tower. In the end, the Empress was forced to use all her trump cards to just barely block his attacks. And the problem was that Ling Han had not used any celestial technique at all. This was really a little too ridiculously strong. Another 2 days later, the team tournament officially began. Dark Moon City had a bye in the first round, and in the second round, they drew a weak team that had ranked below 200 in the last tournament. However, what did it matter whether it was a strong team or a weak team? They advanced triumphantly all the way, and no team was a match for them. The difference was how long Ling Han wanted the other party to last. After the qualifying rounds ended, the finals began. The 32 teams drew lots again. Dark Moon City's first opponent was the champion of the last tournament, Double Extreme City, led by Yuan Xingping. Everyone was discussing spiritedly, saying that Dark Moon City's journey as a dark horse was about to come to an end here. The present Yuan Xingping had gone through a few hundred years of accumulation, and his strength was definitely stronger than the last tournament. But the development of the matter was a great shock. When the two teams faced off, Yuan Xingping actually admitted defeat. Ling Han, I am indeed inferior to you now, but the gap between the Genesis tier and the Severing Mundane tier is too large. Even if there is a very large gap between us now, it will endlessly shrink after advancing into the Severing Mundane tier. At that time, I will battle you again. Though Yuan Xingping admitted defeat, he had not lost his fighting spirit. On the contrary, his fighting spirit was like flames. Ling Han laughed loudly. He liked this kind of competition. Even if a battle was unavoidable at that time, it would still make him feel respect. He nodded and said, "Then I will look forward to it. You had best hurry up. I do not wish to have to wait 10 million years before I can challenge you." Yuan Xingping waved his hand and led his team away. If Ling Han missed the opening of the Severing Mundane pool this time, then the next time would be 10 million years later. Though there were other places that could sever the mundane, he believed that a prodigy like Ling Han would definitely choose the Severing Mundane pool, even if he had to wait 10 million years for this. Ling Han couldn't help but rub his chin. Why did everyone think that he would not be able to make it in time for the opening of the Severing Mundane pool? Chapter 17:14. The defending champion was eliminated just like that, causing an uproar among the crowd. Was this cheating? But none of the higher-ups of the Black Moon sect naturally had such thoughts. They knew that Ling Han could even fight to a draw with Chang Sun Liang. If he still could not easily sweep through with such strength, would there still be any justice in the world? If Ling Han was weak, Then Changsun Liang was weak. Top 16, Top 8, Top 4. Dark Moon City had no opponents at all. Bian Zhe and the others had all participated in the great banquet on Celestial Clouds Island. And when they saw Ling Han, they automatically admitted defeat, not even needing to fight. This caused Mao Shuyu and the others to feel strange. In the qualifying rounds, they had fought so hard. So why did it become so easy after entering the final rounds? What a strange thing. But they became more and more excited, because they only needed to win one more match, and they would be the champions. Champions. The last time they had won the championship was 3 years ago, and the Dark Moon team, which was led by Mao Dai, had similarly swept through the other teams. However, at that time, Mao Dai had at least encountered a few strong opponents, unlike this time, where all the strong teams had surrendered without even putting up a fight. Those who had placed their bets could no longer sit still. You guys were obviously cheating. They protested to the gambling house. Because there were really too many people, it even alarmed the higher-ups of the Black Moon sect. And only then did the news of the battle on Celestial Clouds Island spread, quelling everyone's dissatisfaction. As it turned out, Ling Han was actually so strong. The opponent for Ling Han's group's final battle was the Blue Flame City, where Dan Yujing was. This woman was indeed powerful. Without Yuan Xingping's obstruction, the team she led was unstoppable, and charged all the way to the finals. Unfortunately, her next opponent was so strong that it made people despair. Many people came for the finals, and the Holy Sun, Changsun Liang, was also present in person. He might personally present the prize to Ling Han and the others. The prize for the champion was not very generous, only a few star stones, but the crux was this honor. There were not many people who would not be proud of it. To the forces under the rule of the Black Moon sect, Black Moon City was a holy land, and to be able to obtain first here, that kind of glory was indescribable. The match began, and Dan Yujing stubbornly did not choose to surrender. Instead, she wanted to fight with all her strength. Under her leadership, the 10-man team of Blue Flame City launched a magnificent attack. But what was the use of encountering Ling Han? He easily suppressed them. This finals match was probably the battle with the greatest disparity in strength in history. In just a few breaths of time, the outcome had already been decided. As expected, Changsun Liang stepped out. He was going to personally award the rewards to the victorious team. Humph! A figure suddenly shot out. His entire body was enveloped in the laws, and the great Tao revolved around him. Sect Master. A considerable number of powerful beings exclaimed in shock, and all those in the severing mundane tier knelt down. This was the sect master of the Black Moon sect, a Heaven Soul tier elite. Yet the sect master of the Black Moon sect did not have the slightest intention of paying any attention to the others. He raised his head to look at the skies, his expression solemn. Everyone couldn't help but look up at the sky, and after at least half an incense stick of time, they saw a huge ship appear in the sky, casting a huge shadow. On the bow of the ship, a 7-star flag fluttered in the wind. Baihong City, someone immediately exclaimed. Baihong City, a 2-star city, was also under the rule of the Fu clan. However, the sphere of influence of Baihong City and Black Moon City just happened to border each other, so it was inevitable that there would usually be some conflicts, and they were relatively intense. Baihong City was controlled by the Shao clan. This was a clan force, and was different from the Black Moon sect. And now, Baihong City suddenly dispatched a ship over. Was this going to start a great battle? Xiao, 2 figures landed. The one in the lead was an old man. His whole body was similarly wrapped in the radiance of the great Tao, and he was carrying a young man in his right hand. Only when they landed did he put the young man down. The old man chuckled and said, "Brother Tai, why do you have to be so aggressive?" "Old geezer Dong, what are you doing here?" The sect master of the Black Moon sect asked coldly. "Oh, a rather good seedling has appeared in my Shao clan, and he has never encountered an opponent. I heard that the holy son of your sect is not weak, so I had him come here to seek guidance," the old man said with a smile. His name was Xiao Dong, and he was a super elite of the Shao clan, a Heaven Soul tier. The young man at the side clasped his hands in greeting, and said, "Junior Xiao Shun greets my lord." Though he had come with ill intentions, the The sect master of the Black Moon sect naturally would not show disrespect to a junior in front of a senior. He nodded and said, "Young man, you want to challenge Changsun Liang? It's just a spar. I hope that my lord will grant my wish," Xiaosheng continued, a smile curling up the corners of his lips that carried a faint hint of mockery. Changsun Liang had been famous for many years, and the Xiao clan would definitely not be unaware of his strength, but now he actually dared to kill his way here. He was definitely not seeking his own humiliation. But the problem was, Changsun Liang was already a super genius that only appeared once in a trillion years. Could Xiaosheng be even stronger than him? Unimaginable. Perhaps this Xiaosheng is really very strong, but it's definitely impossible for him to reach the heights of the Holy Sun. That's right. As long as he can withstand a few more moves from the Holy Sun, he will naturally become famous. How despicable. He actually wants to use this kind of method to quickly become famous. Humph. Does he think that it's very easy to withstand a few moves from the Holy Sun? It's best if the Holy Sun kills him in one move. Who would dare to come again in the future? Everyone discussed softly. Xiao Dong was a Heaven Soul elite, so who dared to raise their voice in front of him? Oh, the sect master of the Black Moon sect showed a cold smirk. Clearly he, too, thought that the other only wanted to use Changsun Liang to increase his reputation. He turned to Changsun Liang and said, "Liang, why don't you spar with this little friend?" "Yes, sect master," Changsun Liang answered respectfully, and then strode out. Xiaosheng also took a few steps forward and stood in confrontation with Changsun Liang. The situation doesn't seem good. Ling Han's expression was grim. He was not as optimistic as the others. He faintly felt that this Xiaosheng was very strong, and definitely not weaker than Changsun Liang. He could not say why, but it was just a kind of intuition. If Changsun Liang was still in his peak condition, then there would not be any problem. The crux was that Changsun Liang's spirit had been injured and could not display his full battle prowess. That would be dangerous. Yet the Empress did not take it to heart. She was only concerned about Ling Han. Putting aside the fact that Changsun Liang was defeated, even if he was beaten to death in front of her, she would not be moved in the slightest. However, since Ling Han was concerned, she also cast a few more glances at Xiaosheng, nodded and said, "This person is indeed not weaker than Changsun Liang. With Changsun Liang's present condition, it is basically impossible that he is a match for him." She did not beat around the bush with her words, and said whatever was on her mind. Ling Han frowned, but this battle could no longer be stopped. That was because this was not just a battle of who was stronger between Changsun Liang and Xiaosheng, but also a clash between two great forces. Perhaps it would be able to determine the status of the two forces in the future. That was because these two people would become the leading figures of their respective forces in the future. If one of them was defeated, it would have a far-reaching impact on the force they belonged to. Chapter 17-16. In a battle between elites, any small factor could ultimately affect the outcome of the battle. Fire countered metal. And in this kind of battle between king tiers, it was really too fatal. Boom! When the 10,000 beasts all surged past, Changsun Liang was also blasted back more than 90 meters. There were a few scorch marks on his clothes, but the majority of them were still intact. This was because he was wearing a treasured robe that possessed astonishing defensive effects. But it was not a pseudo-celestial tool, after all, and could not possibly completely block the attack of the strongest Genesis tier, and still left Changsun Liang in a very sorry state. And this was still because he was Changsun Liang. If it had been another Genesis tier, then even if they wore 10 treasured robes, they would still be instantly burned into ashes. Changsun Liang panted heavily, a sliver of blood at the corner of his lips. He could only block, but could not fight back, yet had to forcibly receive 3 powerful moves from an elite of the same cultivation level. Unless he had a freakish physique like Ling Han, there was definitely no way that he would not be injured. His eyes became fierce. Even when he had been battling Ling Han at the peak of King Tier previously, he had not been in such a sorry state. It was not because Xiaosheng was stronger than Ling Han, but because the latter had shamelessly made use of his promise. This was a King Tier, but also an ambitious and ruthless person. He only wanted to achieve his goal, and would use any means necessary. Pa, Xiaosheng began clapping and smilingly said, I have to admit, Brother Changsun still has some ability. I had originally thought that you would not be able to receive 3 moves at all. But the truth has given me a shock. Hearing these words, everyone in the surroundings was furious. If the Lord Holy Sun had not said to let you have 3 moves first, how could he possibly be at a disadvantage? But everyone had to admit that Xiaosheng was indeed strong. Otherwise, even if Changsun Liang had let him have 3 moves, he would not have been like this. However, Brother Changsun, you have sat on the position of first in the younger generation for long enough. It is time to give it up. Xiaosheng laughed, and his figure shot out. He had already recovered to his peak condition, but Changsun Liang was injured, and he was just about to use this chance to defeat the latter in a single move. The battle between 2 young king tiers was the battle of the overall power between the Black Moon sect and the Xiao clan. Whoever won would have the overall power. Changsun Liang naturally knew this as well. He forcibly suppressed his injuries and began to battle with his opponent. At this moment, Changsun Liang's strength could be seen. Even if he was injured, his battle prowess was still incredibly violent, and he did not show any weakness as he clashed with Xiaosheng, displaying that his title of King Tier was not something that could be easily conferred. Ling Han frowned. Not good at all. Changsun Liang's spirit had been injured in the first place, and now he had been blasted by 3 powerful moves in succession. His battle prowess should have plummeted greatly, but now his battle prowess had returned to its peak. What was the reason for this? He must have used some kind of secret technique to forcefully suppress his injuries. If Changsun Liang could not defeat Xiaosheng in a short period of time, then once the effects of the secret technique wore off, not only would he be beaten back to his original state, he might even be further injured, and his condition would become even worse. How could there not be a price to pay for using such a secret technique? Ling Han had come out, so how could the important figures of the Black Moon sect not come out as well? They all looked anxious. If Changsun Liang could display his invincible might and defeat Xiaosheng in a few moves, then there would naturally be no problem at all. But Xiaosheng was really too strong, completely not inferior to Changsun Liang. Even if the 2 of them battled in their strongest state, it would still be difficult to say who would emerge victorious. Wanting to decide the victor in a few moves? Even if Changsun Liang used a powerful move that risked his life, could it be that the other would have to take it head-on? This was bad. Meanwhile, Xiao Dong stroked his beard with a smile. He and the Xiao clan had waited for this day for a very long time. Previously, the Black Moon sect had produced a king tier, causing the few nearby 2-star forces to be anxious. Though they all belonged to the rule of the Fu clan, the Fu clan had never stipulated that they must live in peace with each other. In the celestial realm, war was the eternal and unchanging theme. Once Changsun Liang matured, putting aside breaking through to the immortal palace tier, with his king tier bearing, there should be no problem for him to defeat all dividing soul tiers. Then the Xiao clan would be in danger. Thankfully, they had produced a Xiaosheng as well. By now, Xiaosheng was not even 20,000 years old. After he had displayed his powerful talent, he had been nurtured in secret by the Xiao clan, and only now had he reached the peak stage of the Genesis tier. Only then had he appeared, and his first battle was against Changsun Liang. To Xiaosheng, he was a newcomer, and there was no pressure on him. It was normal for him to lose, but once he won, he would take over Changsun Liang's position and become the strongest prodigy of the present age. The Xiao clan was going to rise powerfully. Xiao Dong laughed wildly in his mind. What Black Moon sect? Hey! Changsun Liang did his best to elevate his battle prowess, but there was a limit to a person's strength. He was already wounded in the first place, and forcibly suppressing his wounds to battle was already barely enough. Could he still increase his battle prowess on such a foundation? Impossible. The more he fought, the worse his situation became. He was already being suppressed by Xiaosheng, and practically had no ability to fight back. Finally, he spat out a mouthful of blood. That was because the time limit of the secret technique had passed, and he could no longer control his wounds. Pooh! Xiaosheng shot out a punch, and a blade of flames appeared from his fist, piercing deeply into Changsun Liang's left shoulder, directly passing through. This was formed from regulations, and was filled with destructive power. Instantly, Changsun Liang was in unbearable pain. The sect master of the Black Moon sect clenched his fists, but Xiaoxing did not make any move that would kill him, and Xiao Dong was by his side, so he forcibly suppressed the urge to make a move. He had already lost this battle, so he could not lose another person. Ha 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 ha. So this is the so-called number one person of the younger generation. Xiaoxing used the blade of flames to lift Changsun Liang up, his expression filled with disdain. Don't make me laugh, you are not much stronger than trash. From today onwards, I am the true number one person of the younger generation, the only king tier. With a fling, he tossed Changsun Liang out, smiling proudly, showing off his arrogance, incredibly arrogant. Changsun Liang, when you see me in future, remember to take a detour. Otherwise, I will beat you up every time I see you, and beat you up until you call me grandpa. He looked disdainfully at the people around him, his expression so arrogant that it was asking for a beating. What, are you guys not convinced? If you are not convinced, then come down and fight. As long as it is a Genesis tier, you can send as many people as you want. Everyone was choking with anger, but facing this kind of king tier, numbers had already lost all meaning. Furthermore, even if they really defeated Xiaosheng with a lineup of thousands or tens of thousands, what meaning would there be? It would only make others laugh. Ling Han rushed out and caught hold of Changsun Liang. He nodded and said, "Don't worry, leave the rest to me." Changsun Liang grabbed onto Ling Han's wrist and spat out a mouthful of dirty blood first before saying, "Be careful, that person's abilities are definitely not inferior to mine." Ling Han broke into a grin and asked, "Brother Changsun, could it be that you have not discovered that I have broken through?" Fuck, it really was. Changsun Liang was instantly dumbfounded. Because Ling Han was too strong, it had subconsciously caused others to overlook his cultivation level. Only now did he suddenly realize that Ling Han had actually been able to fight him to a draw when he had been a great saint. Then now that this guy had advanced into the Saint King tier, just how strong would he be? He would definitely be at the level of a freak. Chapter 1717. Everyone was extremely repressed and furious. Though not everyone here was a disciple of the Black Moon sect, whether it was Dark Moon City or Double Extreme City, everyone was under the rule of the Black Moon sect. Would they feel proud if the Black Moon sect was humiliated? Furthermore, Xiaoxing was indeed too hateful. Firstly, he had not won gloriously, and had only won because he had used Changsun Liang's limit of 3 moves. Secondly, Changsun Liang had been injured in the first place, so could defeating a king tier that was not in peak condition count. Who can stand up and beat this arrogant guy up? But even Changsun Liang could only fight to a draw with Xiaosheng in peak condition. So who else could beat up this person? Ha 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 ha, Brother Tai. Has this holy son of your esteemed sect not cultivated enough? Xiao Dong laughed loudly, adding fuel to the fire without mercy. A cold smirk appeared on his face. Xiaosheng's final move to seize the moment of victory was really too ingenious, directly heavily wounding Changsun Liang. With this, it was very likely that he would have to recuperate for 2 or 3 years, and would definitely miss the opening of the Severing Mundane Pool. A prodigy like this would definitely choose to take the first step into celestial level in the Severing Mundane Pool. Once he missed it, it would be a wait of millions of years. In other words, Xiaosheng would have a lead of millions of years. Even in the celestial realm, this was a very long time. Enough for Xiaosheng to become an elite at the consummate level of the dividing soul tier first, and raise the Black Moon sect to the ground. The sect master of the Black Moon sect's expression was livid, but his whole body was entangled by the regulations, so no one could see his present expression. Since there is no one else from your sect to fight, I will take my leave. Xiao Dong waved a hand at Xiaosheng. He had already shown his might, and it was time to leave. Wait. Just at this moment, there was a soft shout, and a young man slowly walked out, a faint smile on his face. I have come to challenge. It was Ling Han. On the platform, everyone showed an excited expression. Previously, They had heard that Ling Han had once fought with Chong Sun Liang, and they were evenly matched. And the reason why Chong Sun Liang had been injured was because he had sparred with Ling Han. They had not thought that things would be so coincidental that they would encounter another super prodigy today. However, since Ling Han was evenly matched with Chong Sun Liang, then with Chong Sun Liang injured, Ling Han should not be an exception. This battle was still very dangerous. You, Xiaosheng glanced sideways at Ling Han and showed a hint of disdain. Who do you think you are? Are you even worthy of challenging me? He had defeated Chong Sun Liang and had already become the new king of the younger generation. Was he someone that just anyone could challenge? If any Tom, Dick, or Harry could do it, wouldn't he be too busy? Ling Han wasn't angry. In any case, he would just beat him to death later. He smiled and said, "Didn't you just say that anyone who is not convinced can challenge you? And there is no limit to the number of people? Oh, besides you, who else is unconvinced?" Xiaosheng asked coldly. "Wife, are you convinced?" Ling Han turned around and asked the Empress. "I'm not convinced," the Empress said, her tone extremely domineering. Even if it wasn't for the sake of Ling Han, the Empress naturally wouldn't be convinced. She was prouder than anyone else. "You, both of us are not convinced, so how about we beat you together?" Ling Han was all smiles as if saying, "Let's have a meal together today, how casual." Xiaosheng suddenly felt a surge of fury. Why was this guy so annoying? Just a few words, and he was incredibly enraged. He swept a glance over the Empress, and this fury quickly disappeared completely. Such grace, it was really too moving. He immediately made up his mind. Even if he had to snatch her, he would bring this woman back to 100 Magnificent City. With this thought in mind, he said, "All right, the two of you can come at me together." Ling Han snickered and slowly circled around to Xiaosheng's back. In this way he, Xiaosheng, and the Empress just happened to form a line. He laughed and said, "Wife, let's beat this guy like a ball." "All right." The Empress nodded, though her philosophy was relatively simple, and if someone was displeased, they would directly kill them. Since Ling Han wanted to play, she was happy to play along. Xiaosheng's expression involuntarily became ugly. How much did the two of you look down on him? You actually wanted to sandwich him in the middle and beat him like a ball? Was this teaming up? Absolutely not. It was just you kicking over, and I'll kick back. It was practically no different from a one-on-one battle. At their level, they were actually not afraid of taking turns to fight. Their origin power was as vast as the sea, and their vitality was vigorous. Even if they battled for a few dozen years, they would not be exhausted. What a despicable mouth. I'm not going to tear it apart. He was suddenly enraged, and immediately leaped out, charging towards Ling Han. "Wife, catch the ball." When Xiaosheng charged over, Ling Han shot out a punch. Pung, without any suspense, Xiaosheng was sent flying with a single punch. With Ling Han's present strength, even if the Empress and Chong Sun Liang joined forces, they would not be a match for him. So what was a mere Xiaosheng worth? The sect master of the Black Moon sect, Xiaodong, Chong Sun Liang, all the spectators. Fuck, was there something wrong with their eyes? Xiaosheng was actually sent flying with a casual punch. It could be confirmed that Ling Han had definitely not used any celestial technique in this strike. There were no patterns of great Tao, no light of regulation. If this was also a celestial technique, then it was definitely an unprecedented technique. It was just such an ordinary punch, and Xiaosheng was sent flying. Sent flying? Who could have imagined this? And who could believe it? Had Chong Sun Liang really fought to a draw with him? Could it be that it was not that Xiaosheng was strong, but that Chong Sun Liang's injuries were really too severe? And that was why Xiaosheng had taken advantage of him? Otherwise, Ling Han had not used his full power at that time at all. The most inconceivable had to be the few people from Dark Moon City. They knew that Ling Han was very strong, but they had only just found out that Ling Han was actually able to fight to a draw with Chong Sun Liang. But now that it was Ling Han who had shown his might, they were all directly dumbfounded. Was this really a human? Xiaosheng streaked through the air, heading straight for the Empress. Though Xiaosheng was dizzy from this punch, king tears were king tears after all. When there was suddenly another person in front of him, he immediately shot out a punch, wanting to seize the initiative. The Empress moved. Her slender jade-like hand was pleasing to the eye, but the force of her palm was incredibly thick. As she pushed out her palm, endless patterns of great Tao were densely packed, practically capable of frightening someone to death. Pung 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 pung. Xiao Sheng and the Empress exchanged fierce blows, and this could also show his strength. He actually managed to block more than 30 moves from the Empress, before being sent flying with a single palm strike from the Empress, and then crashing towards Ling Han. You guys are really treating me like a ball. Xiao Sheng was furious. He roared loudly, and taking advantage of the fact that he was still flying through the air, he brandished the blade of flames. This was one of his strongest moves. If one was struck by the blade of flames, they would receive a wound of great Tao, and it was extremely fatal. Ling Han smiled faintly, and stretched out a large hand to grab that blade of flames. In the first place, Xiao Sheng was going to stab him with the blade of flames, and seeing that he was willing to stretch out a hand to grab at him, he naturally would not dodge. Thus, Ling Han's large hand firmly caught hold of the blade of flames. Not good. Changsun Liang's expression involuntarily changed. He had suffered this blade of flames from Xiao Sheng at the end, causing his body to be filled with frightening shards of regulations of flames, which had fused into one with his whole body, and was extremely difficult to expel. Chapter 17-18. After suffering such an injury, even a severing mundane tier, or dividing soul tier elite, would have a hard time dealing with it, because it had fused with his body. If he forcefully used it, it would cause terrifying damage to his physical body. Ling Han using his hand to grab the flame blade was asking for trouble. You can't give little Xiao Sheng the credit just because you succeeded in a single strike. This person is a genuine king tier, and his strength is incredible. Changsun Liang was still in that state of mind when he saw Ling Han immediately send out a flying kick after grabbing hold of the fire blade, which landed on Xiao Sheng's chest. Pung! This guy was sent flying again, crashing into the Empress. This! Changsun Liang gaped, speechless to the extreme. He had arrived, and Ling Han's hand was completely unscathed. There wasn't even the slightest bit of black scorch mark. You're too freakish. Strange, his movements are clearly not very fast, and even I can clearly feel his movements, so why is it that Xiao Sheng can't block it? To say nothing of blocking, he can't even stretch out a hand to block it. That's right, even if it was me it wouldn't be like this. He must have been frightened by Ling Han's king tier aura, and lost the ability to resist. And that must be the case. Everyone was confused, and thought that they had found an explanation. However, elites above the severing mundane tier had another method. Wielding something heavy as though it were light, and moving swiftly as though it were slow. These powerful figures all showed expressions of shock, feeling fear for Ling Han's strength. Even though Xiao Sheng's every move was incredibly clear, and it seemed as if anyone could parry his attacks, whether they could or not was another matter. But in truth, unless Xiao Sheng's reaction and attack speed could be 10 times faster, it was completely impossible for him to parry his attacks. Ling Han's attacks were too fast, just like lightning. You could see the lightning descend incredibly clearly, but if you still wanted to stretch out a hand to block the lightning, how could you possibly do that? But practically no one could reach this kind of cultivation level, not even any of these powerful figures. Their current attack speed was definitely faster than Ling Han's, but when it came to a battle of the same level, it was impossible for them to make the other party only look on helplessly, unable to even raise a hand to block their attacks. One had to know that Xiao Sheng was already a true king tier. In this world, there should only be people of the same cultivation level who could match his battle prowess. How could Xiao Sheng suppress him like this? This young man is going to defy the heavens. Pung 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 pung. After being sent flying to where the Empress was, Xiao Sheng at least had the ability to fight back. He exchanged a few dozen more blows with the Empress before finally being defeated. He was sent flying again. However, when it came to Ling Han, he could only take a beating. No matter if Ling Han punched, slapped, or kicked him, he would be sent flying with a single blow. The difference in strength was clear at a glance. Everyone felt their scalps go numb. Chang Sun Liang and Xiao Sheng were already top-notch geniuses. Yet now, another two had actually appeared, and both of them could completely crush Xiao Sheng. Oh my god. A smile appeared on the face of the sect master of the Black Moon sect. Though Chang Sun Liang had indeed been severely wounded, Xiao Sheng was currently in an even worse state. He was being beaten here and there like a ball. This was both wounded and humiliating. Xiao Dong's expression naturally changed completely as well. His eyes were burning with fury. He had never thought that the situation would take such a great turn. Xiao Sheng had actually been defeated, and it was not a narrow defeat, but a crushing defeat. He had been defeated at the hands of two people at the same time. How could this be? He could not help but want to make a move. The Black Moon sect actually had 3 such young king tiers. Then, given a few billion years' time, who among the 2-star forces would be able to match them? Ho ho, old geezer Dong. What do you want to do? The sect master of the Black Moon sect asked smilingly, but had sealed off all avenues for Xiao Dong to make a move. If the other wanted to make a move, it could only be directed at him. The two of them had exchanged blows many times, so the sect master of the Black Moon sect naturally had nothing to fear. Xiao Dong cast a cold glance at the sect master of the Black Moon sect, and suppressed the urge to make a move. Since Xiao Sheng had not admitted defeat, it would not be good for him to stop the battle. However, was this really a battle? Perhaps the battle between the Empress and Xiao Sheng could still be considered a battle, but the battle between Ling Han and Xiao Sheng was definitely not. That was only a one-sided massacre. By now, Xiao Sheng had suffered who knew how many punches and kicks from Ling Han, and his whole person was covered in dirt and grime. I don't want to play anymore, the Empress said to Ling Han. Her patience had always been very poor, and she would directly destroy those she disliked. Ling Han nodded. His wife was tired, so he would not play anymore. He stretched out a hand, grabbed Xiao Sheng, and smilingly said, "Young man, you have to learn to be humble in future. I am so fierce, and yet you are not arrogant, so what are you?" These words rendered everyone speechless. You husband and wife had already kicked him like a ball, so how could you still be arrogant? But when they thought of Xiao Sheng's previous arrogance, everyone felt that their anger had been vented. This kind of trash needed to be taught a good lesson. Awesome. Ling Han casually swung out. Xiao Sheng drew out a shallow pit on the ground, and only stopped when he reached Xiao Dong's feet. This was practically a provocation. In truth, Ling Han did not want to casually become enemies with the dividing soul tier elite, but he had beaten Xiao Sheng to the ground in public. Enmity had already been formed between him and the Xiao clan, so what need was there for him to be polite about? Xiao Dong picked Xiao Sheng up, though he wanted nothing more than to give Xiao Sheng a slap across the face. This was something he had waited for several tens of thousands of years, and he had just enjoyed the taste of victory. Yet he had been beaten back to his original state. But no matter what, Xiao Sheng was still the most outstanding member of the Xiao clan, and his future was boundless. Furthermore, this could not be completely blamed on Xiao Sheng, but rather Ling Han and Xiao Dong were too ridiculously strong. "Young man, what is your name?" Xiao Dong asked, his tone very calm. For someone like him, who had lived for who knew how many millions and millions of years, he naturally could control his killing intent very well. Ling Han smiled slightly and replied, "My surname is Ding, and my full name is Xiaochen." Pooh. Ding Xiaochen was currently feeling jealous at the side, and when he heard these words, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "You can't harm me like this." He indeed wanted to become famous, and become the strongest of the younger generation, but not through such a method. Why did this method feel a little familiar, and a little deceitful? All those years ago, the Han clan had charged over, saying that someone from their Ding clan had been impudent in the ancient realm, and had destroyed the physical body of a prodigy from their Han clan. But ever since the incident with Ding Zizhen, the Ding clan had forbidden anyone from entering the ancient realm. Furthermore, the Ding clan did not have the ability to send a Genesis tier into the ancient realm, either. This would require at least a dividing soul tier elite to act. Could it be that that matter was related to Ling Han? No way, no way. Ding Xiaochen immediately shook his head. He had to be thinking too much. He hurriedly called out, Senior, senior. This junior is Ding Xiaochen. And that person is called Ling Han. Senior, you must not be deceived. He did not want to be targeted by a dividing soul tier force. That would really be seeking death. When they heard these words, everyone couldn't help but show expressions of disdain. It was now a battle between the Black Moon sect and the Xiao clan. So how could you weaken morale and still call senior so fawningly? Hey. But to Ding Xiaochen, this was also the proper attitude. How could he call that old geezer? Old fart. Chapter 1720. The Han clan, a 3-star force, was the overlord of Juyo City. In the past, the Han clan had once sent a very outstanding junior into the ancient realm to gain experience. Firstly, if he cultivated to the consummate level of the Genesis tier in the ancient realm, his battle prowess would far surpass his peers, and secondly, there were also treasures left behind by celestial kings in the ancient realm. If he managed to obtain them, he would have struck gold. This junior was Han Qi. However, Han Qi encountered Ling Han, and they fought over a stalk of void flower. In the end, Han Qi's physical body was destroyed by Ling Han. If it wasn't for the fact that the experts of his clan had set up a trap in his sea of consciousness, which protected his soul and allowed him to return to the celestial realm, he most likely would have died in humiliation in the ancient realm. At that time, Ling Han claimed to be from the Dark Moon City's Ding clan. Thus, the Ding clan suffered misfortune. This was not just a case of a junior having his physical body destroyed. The Han clan even suspected that Ling Han had obtained a celestial king tier secret technique. Thus, very soon, some powerful figures came to the Ding clan. But no matter how they investigated, they could not find any possibility of any member of the Ding clan heading to the ancient realm. To send a person below the celestial tier into the ancient realm, that would require at least the strength of the dividing soul realm. Who in Dark Moon City could do it? Therefore, the Han family went back after throwing a tantrum. The Black Moon sect did not dare make a sound regarding this matter. The reason was very simple. How could a 2-star force challenge a 3-star force? Furthermore, the Fu clan did not make any move either. Were they going to start a war with the Han clan for the sake of a mere Ding clan? What a joke! Moreover, the Han family had indeed suffered a loss in this matter. No matter what, they had to let them vent their anger, right? In short, the Ding clan felt very bitter in their hearts. This time, someone from the Han clan came again, and it was the victim Han Qi. He wanted to personally identify the murderer. After hearing this news, Ling Han couldn't help but rub his chin and ponder. Could he take this opportunity to teach the Ding clan a lesson? In fact, Ling Han already had plans to leave Dark Moon City. Firstly, the opening of the Severing Mundane Pool was already very close, and he would have to delay for about half a year on the road. In truth, he would only have to wait for a year. Secondly, his limelight in Black Moon City was too great. Although there were many forces that wanted to recruit him, there were definitely some forces that wanted to get rid of him. Who would be willing to have a king appear in another faction and wait to be swept away in the future? In particular, he had severely offended the Xiao clan, which was a 2-star force. For example, if they sent out a dividing soul realm expert, how could Ling Han block them? Even if the Ding, Long, and Duan clans joined forces and attacked together, they would still be instantly annihilated even against a Yin soul expert. Moreover, it was already good enough that the Ding clan did not add a knife to the wound and merely watched on from the sidelines. Of course, if Ling Han was willing to stay in Black Moon City, then the Xiao clan would definitely not dare to offend him. However, this was only a 1-star city, so what did the Xiao clan have to fear? Since he was going to leave anyway, he might as well go big. Ling Han cracked a smile. Then let's play. Feng Piyun and the others all stayed in the secondary city of Black Moon City and had already adapted to the rules of the celestial realm. As long as they didn't say it themselves, no one would be able to tell that they came from the ancient realm. The Rain Emperor had also gone on a long journey and had stepped onto his own path of martial art, so he did not have to worry about anything. Ling Han began to make his preparations. Almost a day later, he suddenly released news that he was requesting to join the Ding clan. This caused a great commotion in the three great clans. Who would have thought that the Duan clan and the Long clan had both offered what could be called a sky-high price? Yet Ling Han still did not nod his head and say which clan he wanted to join. However, the Ding clan did not try to recruit him at all, and Ling Han instead went up himself. What exactly was going on here? Did this guy have the trait of being despicable? A great discussion also started in the Ding clan because of this. I think that we should still accept this boy. Have you not heard that his battle achievements are on par with the Holy Sons? A third Severance Grand Elder said. He was also one of the only two-thirds Severance Grand Elders of the Ding clan, and his name was Ding Shan. Furthermore, he is good friends with the Holy Sun. If we can form a relationship with him, then the Ding clan will definitely be able to become the #1 clan of Dark Moon City in a single leap. The other third Severance Grand Elder, Ding Song, shook his head and said, "That despicable brat is full of tricks and definitely does not have any good intentions. Our Ding clan has not promised any benefits at all, so why would he want to join us?" This was something that everyone did not understand. Even if Ling Han wanted to join any force, it should not be the Ding clan. Moreover, wouldn't it be better for him to join the Black Moon sect? After all, he was good friends with Changsun Liang. I think that the words of this brat are all untrustworthy, Ding Hu said resolutely. Though he had not seen Ling Han many times, this brat had left a deep impression of great evil. The members of the Ding clan were divided into two factions. Half of them agreed to let Ling Han join them. After all, he was a supreme king tier, and furthermore had a connection with the Holy Sun. However, the other half was firmly against it, and thought that there was absolutely no reason for Ling Han to join them. There had to be some conspiracy behind this. This was indeed a conspiracy, but even if the Ding clan thought about it until their heads exploded, they would not know where this conspiracy had come from. After all, the information that both sides had was completely different. In the end, everyone turned to Ding Yaolong. This was the only fourth Severance Grand Elder of the clan, and also the pillar of support. Ding Yaolong stretched out a finger and lightly tapped on the armrest. After a long while he finally said, "Let Ling Han join the clan." He paused, and then continued. "Regardless of whether he has ulterior motives, once he enters the Ding clan, everything will be beyond his control. Grand Elder is wise." Regardless of whether they agreed or not, since Ding Yaolong had said so, everyone could only nod in agreement. However, thinking about it, once Ling Han joined the Ding clan, then whether he was beaten or killed would be in the hands of the Ding clan. Could it be that I would need the agreement of the Long clan and Duan clan to deal with a member of the clan? Even if it was the Black Moon sect, they could not interfere in the internal affairs of the Ding clan. Perhaps this brat was hiding some conspiracy, but once he entered the Ding clan, he would be waiting for a fate worse than death. A sinister expression also appeared on Ding Hu's face. He could not wait to crush Ling Han to death with his own hands. Also, there was that woman with a perfect figure. After he killed Ling Han, she would become his plaything. Very soon, the news spread that the Ding clan had accepted Ling Han's request and agreed to let him join the Ding clan. They were even going to confer a surname on Ling Han to show how highly the Ding clan regarded him. "We have completely regarded you as a member of our clan." This was also a trick of the Ding clan. To cultivators, the surname was extremely important, as it represented one's roots. Asking you to change your surname now was equivalent to giving you a slap. But the crux of the matter was that Ling Han was currently too weak. Thus, on the surface, this move of the Ding clan was still a reward for Ling Han. When Ling Han received the notice, he couldn't help but smile. He asked that person to return and send a message, saying that as long as he joined the Ding clan, he could change his surname to Ding. He was not worried at all, because there was absolutely no possibility that he could join the Ding clan. Then, changing his surname would naturally not happen. "Ding clan, you have never done anything good before. This time, I will let you have a good time." Ling Han muttered to himself, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Anyone who was familiar with him would know that this guy definitely had the intention to cause trouble. Chapter 1721. Yo, little Han, Why do you look like you're planning to do something bad? A voice suddenly sounded. Ling Han didn't need to turn around to know that there was only one person who could make such a vulgar sound. The large black dog. He smiled and said, "What, are you tired of playing? Sigh, the people here are really too inhospitable and too inexperienced." The large black dog sighed sorrowfully, holding his chin with his paw, his expression gloomy. Ling Han could imagine that who knew how many people had already fallen into the hands of this despicable dog. "Oh, that's right. You were smiling so sinisterly just now, so you must be up to no good. Hurry up and say it so Grandpa Dog can laugh too." The large black dog's eyes lit up. Things like tricking people was his favorite. Ling Han's eyes swiveled, and he said, "I've planned a good show, and I just happen to have a role for you. Do you want to do it?" The large black dog's expression instantly became vigilant. He was the ancestor of tricking people, so he was naturally very vigilant. He always felt that others would harm him. "Brat, what do you want Grandpa Dog to do?" "I want you to go bite a person and lure him to a place," Ling Han said with a smile. "Woof!" The large black dog was furious and suddenly pounced at Ling Han. "You're the one who bites people. Your whole family bites people." This damn dog was clearly a big scammer who only bit people, but always refused to admit his own identity. How shameless! Ling Han dodged as he explained the plan. The large black dog couldn't help but slowly stop, and his eyes began to shine. "Grandpa Dog will accept this job." The large black dog stood on his hind legs, patting his iron underwear. "Grandpa Dog will pat my chest and guarantee that I definitely won't mess it up." Ling Han's expression darkened. "Is that your chest?" "Hee, a mistake, a mistake." The large black dog laughed sheepishly. Ling Han's expression was full of suspicion. "Little Black, you won't trick me too, right?" The large black dog instantly looked as if he had been humiliated. He opened his mouth and was about to bite Ling Han. However, before he could pounce on Ling Han, he smiled and said, "You've really guessed correctly. Grandpa Dog originally wanted you to fall into a pit of fire and be burned to death." "Damn dog. I'm just lying to you. What kind of relationship do you have with Grandpa Dog? Would I harm you?" The large black dog said with a serious expression. The large black dog was notorious for his misdeeds, so his words definitely could not be trusted. However, Ling Han believed that his plan should be very much to the large black dog's liking. Even if the large black dog wanted to screw him over, he would have to wait until the plan was fully implemented. Otherwise, the show would not be able to start. The man and the dog discussed the details of the operation. Both of them were people who were afraid of themselves when they were bad. They took turns to perfect the plan, which originally had some loopholes, until it was almost flawless. "Little Han, you're so bad. Beware of growing a sore on your heart and dying young," the large black dog said with a serious expression. Ling Han chuckled. "Speaking of bad, I'm not even 1/10,000th as good as you." "That's true. Grandpa Dog is the ancestor of evil people, so I'm immune to all poisons." The large black dog was not embarrassed at all. Instead, he was very proud of himself. The large black dog left, and Ling Han entered into the Black Tower with the Empress. The Ding clan was no different from a lion's den. Ling Han naturally would not take the Empress with him to take such a risk, so it was better for the Empress to stay in the Black Tower, like the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden had no distractions, and cultivated all day long. She had the inheritance of the 3 Phoenix Kings, and was also in a holy land of cultivation like the Celestial Realm. Added with the comprehension of Tao under the reincarnation tree, her present cultivation level had already soared to the peak stage of the Genesis tier. But the step of severing mundane tier was really too difficult. At this point, the inheritance of the 3 Phoenix Kings had also been completely exhausted. If she wanted to severing mundane tier, she could only rely on her own efforts. But even a prodigy like Chang Sun Liang needed at least 10,000 years of accumulation to reach severing mundane tier. Though she had the help of the reincarnation tree, her aptitude was far too lacking. It was already very rare that she could reach the threshold of severing mundane tier in the next 10,000 years. However, it was impossible for her to strike the heaven and earth. Otherwise, she definitely would not be able to withstand the backlash, and she would be killed. And this strike was to sever her ties with the mortal world, and it was very possible that it would sever her relationship with Ling Han. The Great Tao was emotionless, and comprehending the Great Tao naturally required one to have a clear heart and few desires, and be cold and emotionless. Ling Han did not want to lose a wife, so he wanted to concoct some alchemical pill that could allow one to obtain endless lifespan, and did not necessarily require one to advance to the severing mundane tier. Taking a step back, reaching the severing mundane tier was far too difficult, and there was a very high possibility that the heavenly phoenix divine maiden would not be able to take this step. If she forcefully advanced, she would only kill herself. In this regard, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden could do nothing. Even in the ancient realm, her natural talent could only be considered not bad. She was really too far away from being a top-grade prodigy. Ling Han dragged the two women into an absurd threesome. The Empress did not mind, but the heavenly phoenix divine maiden was so embarrassed that she bit Ling Han fiercely afterward. She was thin-skinned, and there were many positions that she had not unlocked yet. A threesome was really too unacceptable for her. Your husband is going to challenge the gates of hell today, so how can I not reward him? Ling Han laughed loudly. After putting on his clothes, he couldn't help but smack the Empress's voluptuous bottom. He saw the tight flesh of her bottom ripple, and he almost let out a howl, unable to stop himself from pouncing on her again. After a long time, Ling Han exited the Black Tower. The Ding clan had previously said that they would open an ancestral shrine 3 days later, and there, they would accept Ling Han into the Ding clan, and bestow upon him the surname Ding. Just from these actions alone, it could be seen that the Ding clan really did value Ling Han, and had specially opened an ancestral shrine for him. However, whether or not there would be any demonic moths that would come to prank Ling Han during this process was another matter entirely. Ancestral shrine. Ling Han shook his head with a smile. Clearly, after he went, the ancestral shrine of the Ding clan would definitely be obliterated. At that time, who knew what expression those members of the Ding clan would have on their faces? After tidying up his appearance, he left the barracks with a smile and headed towards the Ding clan. After returning as the champion, Ling Han and the other meritorious officials also obtained 3 years of leave and salary. Thus, Ling Han was now very free and could go wherever he wanted. He wandered about and spent 2 days before finally arriving at the Ding clan. There was nothing he could do. Dark Moon City was too big. Today, the Ding clan was very lively because Ling Han, this young king tier, was going to join the Ding clan. Naturally, there were many people who had come to observe the ceremony. Moreover, at least the Duan and Long clans still did not believe that Ling Han would really join the Ding clan. That did not make sense. Putting aside the fact that the Ding clan did not promise any benefits, even if they did, added with the dirty dealings between the Ding clan and Ling Han previously, under the same conditions, Ling Han should have found their Duan clan or Long clan. There was something strange. Not only the Ding clan, but everyone else also felt that this matter was incredibly strange. If Ling Han really wanted to join some force, wouldn't it be better to go to Black Moon City? The sky was higher, the stage was bigger, and there were also more resources. Ling Han is here. When Ling Han, who was dressed in azure, appeared at the main entrance, everyone called out. The main character had arrived, and no matter what Ling Han thought, this matter would eventually have to be settled. Once he joined the Ding clan, there would be no turning back. Chapter 1722. Ling Han, a dignified voice said, and Mao Dai strode over. Ling Han hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, Lord Mao." He was truly very grateful to Mao Dai. With his guidance, he learned of another method of severing mundane. To him this was a huge favor. However, Mao Dai was slightly displeased and asked, "Are you really going to join the Ding clan?" He felt that it was a pity. Even he felt that he wasn't qualified to be Ling Han's master. But Ling Han actually wanted to join the Ding clan. Wasn't that degrading himself? Ling Han smiled and said, "I want to join the Ding clan, but that depends on whether they are willing to accept me or not." What did that mean? Mao Dai felt that it was strange. They had already opened their ancestral shrine, and they were going to write your name on their genealogy today. How could this be fake? Once you were crowned with the name of the Ding clan, and become a member of the Ding clan, no matter what the Ding clan did to you, no one could think of stopping them. They had no standpoint. Rest assured, Lord. I am very clear about this, Ling Han consoled Mao Dai. Mao Dai took a deep look at Ling Han, and then nodded. He decided to be a good guest today. Severing mundane ancestors from the Duan clan and Long clan also walked over, wanting to persuade Ling Han one last time. Otherwise, once the ceremony began, it would be too late. Young Master Han, a junior of the Ding clan, walked over, his expression very respectful. Right now, Ling Han hadn't officially joined the Ding clan, so they had to put on an act. However, what would happen in the future was unknown. Perhaps the Ding clan would really let bygones be bygones, and nurture Ling Han as their hope. Perhaps they would kill him. This was the Ding clan's internal matter, and had nothing to do with outsiders. Ling Han nodded, and didn't say anything. He really didn't have the slightest favorable impression of the Ding clan, so he couldn't be bothered to waste his breath. That person's expression was calm, and he said, "It's about time. Please follow me, young Master Han." He led Ling Han in. They were about to enter the ancestral shrine, and this was a very solemn ceremony. Thus, Ling Han had to prepare well. There was no time for him to fast, but he still had to take a bath and burn incense no matter what. There were naturally other members of the Ding clan, who led the crowd of spectators to the ancestral shrine first. Originally, a measly Genesis tier cultivator, joining the Ding clan couldn't possibly alarm a severing mundane ancestor. But who asked Ling Han to be too outstanding? In the first battle, he fought to a draw with the Holy Son of the Black Moon sect, and in the second battle, he even shook the heavens. Thus, not only would the grand elders of the Ding clan appear, but powerful figures from the Duan clan and Long clan had also come. As a matter of fact, Mao Dai had also come. He could be said to be the #1 elite below the 4th severance, so his status was extremely high. Ling Han followed that junior of the Ding clan to a courtyard, and then he took a bath. Sandalwood incense was lit in the room, and it cleansed his heart and mind. An hour later, Ling Han changed into a new set of clothes and opened the door. He had not expected that the person waiting for him at the door would actually be Ding Xiaochen. Ling Han. Ding Xiaochen gritted his teeth, looking as if he wanted to swallow Ling Han alive. You can fool others, but you can't fool me. You definitely don't have any good intentions. Ling Han laughed and said, "At first I thought you had a pig's brain, but I didn't think that you would have some imagination. But this time, you have miscalculated." Ding Xiaochen said coldly, "You have entered my Ding clan, so you are a member of the Ding clan in life, and a ghost of the Ding clan in death. If the clan wants you to live, you can live, and if the clan wants you to die, you can only die. Are you trying to scare me?" Ling Han asked with a smile. "From the moment you stepped into the Ding clan, your fate was already decided." Ding Xiaochen humphed. "Now, you can no longer turn back." Ling Han's expression was leisurely, and he said, No. Please don't misunderstand. I have not entered the Ding clan yet, and later. Hee. I'm afraid that your Ding clan will not agree to accept me. You are only a measly Genesis tier. So what can you do?" Ding Xiaochen said disapprovingly. "I just praised you for having some imagination. That is really impressive. Your brain capacity is too small, not much bigger than a cockroach." Ling Han sighed and even shook his head. "You." Ding Xiaochen glared at him. Ling Han smiled slightly. "What do you want to fight?" Ding Xiaochen forcibly suppressed his anger. In front of Ling Han, he really could not act tough. If he fought, he would be abused, all right? "Come with me. It is time to go to the ancestral shrine to pay respects to the ancestors." He waved his sleeves and turned to leave. However, he stopped after a few steps, because Ling Han did not move at all. He couldn't help but feel annoyed and said, "Hurry up and follow." "If I follow just because you say so, how embarrassing would that be for me?" Ling Han not only did not follow, but instead sat down. "Continue shouting. In any case, I am not in a hurry." "You are not in a hurry, but I am." Ding Xiaochen's face turned green. He hated Ling Han too much, so he had taken the initiative to apply for this errand. He wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to insult Ling Han, but he had not thought that Ling Han would not be angered, and he would be placed on the fire to be roasted. If he was late, Ling Han would not have a good ending, but he would feel better. If he could not even do this little thing well, what kind of terrible impression would he leave in the hearts of the elders of the clan? Ling Han, don't make a mistake. He was not willing to beg Ling Han, so he chose to threaten him. Ling Han glanced at him, a faint sneer on his face. It was this kind of disdain that almost drove Ding Xiaochen crazy. This was too much disdain. It was as if in Ling Han's eyes he, Ding Xiaochen, was not a person, but a pile of shit, and could not be bothered to look at him a second time. Ling Han. He raised his voice. Ling Han crossed his legs and picked his ears. If you bark again, I am going to beat you up. What could be more threatening than this sentence? Ling Han, what do you want before you are willing to leave? Ding Xiaochen asked calmly. Ling Han broke into a smile and said, I feel that your words just now were too hurtful, and now there is a shadow in my heart. I suddenly do not want to move. Fuck, who was the one angering whom just now? Ding Xiaochen did not dare to shout anymore, and said, Fine, I apologize. No sincerity at all. Ling Han shook his head. How could it be considered sincerity? Ding Xiaochen gritted his teeth and said, I am sorry. I was speaking nonsense just now. Please be magnanimous, and do not lower yourself to my level. Ling Han shook his head. I am very narrow-minded. Fuck. Ding Xiaochen very rarely lost his composure, but in front of Ling Han, he would become a mad dog at any moment, wanting to bite someone. He glared at Ling Han hatefully for a while, and then he bent over, lowered his head and said, I am sorry. What did you do wrong? Ling Han laughed. Although your words were very hurtful, I felt that they were quite correct. Sai, as a person, one must not be subdued by force, and you have been subdued just like that. Why are you so spineless? Ding Xiaochen's face turned green, and flames spewed from his nostrils. He wanted to kill someone. Yet Ling Han stood up and said, What are you standing around for? Hurry up and go. If we miss the auspicious time, can you bear the responsibility? These words easily defeated Ding Xiaochen's fury. He obediently walked to the front to lead the way. Before Ling Han entered the Ding clan, he had to go along with Ling Han no matter what. At this moment he really wanted to slap himself. Even if he wanted to demonstrate his strength to Ling Han, there was no need to be in such a hurry to do it today. He had really shot himself in the foot. Chapter 1724. Hearing Ling Han's words, the members of the Ding clan were all so frightened that they almost had a heart attack. Are you crazy? Do you know who this person is? In front of a severing mundane ancestor, what right do you have to speak? Before Han Lu flew into a rage, Ding Song quickly said, My lord, please don't take offense. This is just a junior of the Han clan. He has never seen the world before. Please don't take it to heart. Because he had put on this show today, in order to accept Ling Han into the Ding clan, he had subconsciously taken Ling Han to be a member of the Ding clan. Han Lu glanced at him. There was a hint of anger on his face, but he didn't show it. Even though the Ding clan was not worth mentioning in his eyes, they were still part of the Fu clan after all. He could exert pressure on them. But if he casually killed them, that would be equivalent to slapping the Fu clan's face. So he had to be careful. Of course, it was not impossible for him to forcefully kill Ling Han, who asked Ling Han to dare insult a fourth Severance Grand Elder. Most importantly, Han Lu wanted to kill that large black dog. It had actually bitten his buttocks. How could he endure this? The large black dog was indeed extraordinary. He was only at the Genesis tier. Yet he had actually managed to bite a fourth Severance Grand Elder. Moreover, he had even managed to escape unscathed. This was practically a miracle. My lords, how can we let this go just like this? Ling Han's expression was filled with a strong sense of righteousness. Lord who was even heavily injured, so how can we tolerate this? This is our Ding clan's ancestral shrine. Yet this old man dared to commit murder here. He doesn't have any respect for our Ding clan at all. If we don't punish him severely, where will our Ding clan put our face? Ding Song, Ding Shan, and Ding whose faces all turned green. You're digging a hole for the Ding clan. Sure enough, a furious expression appeared on Han Lu's face. A measly Genesis tier cultivator dares to insult me? You're seeking death. It's you. The young man in Han Lu's hands suddenly spoke. He glared at Ling Han, and his face was filled with rage. He was Han Qi. After his physical body had been destroyed, he had actually used a miraculous method to nurture a new physical body. This was definitely of the same bloodline as him. Otherwise, the degree of compatibility would not be so high. Sure enough, Immortal Mansion's sect wasn't simple. Ling Han glanced at him and said, "The adults are talking, why are you interrupting?" Old man, quickly kneel down and apologize to the adults. Han Lu looked at Han Qi and said, "Qi, or what's wrong?" Han Qi's status was far too high. He was the son of the Han clan's patriarch, and had always been doted on. Were it not for that, why would the patriarch personally accompany Han Qi? He was a severing mundane ancestor, and no matter where he was in the celestial realm, he had a very high status. Han Qi's entire body was trembling from anger. After so many years, he had finally found the culprit. He used his divine sense to transmit to Han Lu, his face filled with killing intent. Han Lu was also enraged. "You Ding clan. You even said that the person who committed murder in the ancient realm had nothing to do with you. Then who is this person? You really are audacious. A few times ago, you even patted your chest and said that there was definitely no such person. I almost really believed you." On the contrary, Han Lu's expression became calm. He suppressed his anger and said to Ding Song and the others, "These are disciples of your Ding clan, right?" Previously, he had heard Ding Song say that this was a junior of the Han clan. However, he still had to confirm it before unleashing a towering fury. "Elder Han, the Han clan has neglected their discipline. I'm truly sorry," Ding Song hurriedly said. In his opinion, the only thing he could do at this moment was to continuously apologize. He hadn't thought of anything else. As long as you admit it. Ding clan, how audacious." Han Lu roared. Boom. His voice transformed into a wave that swept out in all directions. At this moment, he had no reservations whatsoever. So what if this was a force under the rule of the Fu clan? The members of the Han clan had all been killed. So how could he not take revenge? Even if he destroyed the Ding clan, he could guarantee that the Fu clan wouldn't act out. How could a 3-star force be humiliated by a 1-star force? Pung pung pung. Just how powerful was a 4th Severance Grand Elder? Under the impact of this wave of sound, 1/3 of the ancestral shrine was instantly destroyed. Meanwhile, the juniors of the Ding clan all vomited blood, and there were countless casualties. Han Lord Han! Ding Shan and the others roared. To the Ding clan, this was far too great a loss. "Humph! I'll destroy your Ding clan today," Han Lu said mercilessly. However, he didn't target Ling Han. After all, he was the main culprit, and he would be executed after he returned to 9 Underworld City. Ling Han was naturally happy to see this. After setting up such a huge trap and acting for so long, it was finally time for him to reap the rewards. Awesome! Ding Shan and the others launched a fierce counterattack. However, what were 3rd Severance Grand Elders worth in front of 4th Severance Grand Elders? At the very least, they would need several hundred to make up for this gap in cultivation level. Moreover, Ding Hu was only at the 1st Severance. Every time Han Lu attacked, Ding Shan and Ding Song would vomit blood. Meanwhile, Ding Hu didn't dare to face Han Lu head-on at all. If he was struck, he would definitely die on the spot. The Ding clan was truly unlucky. A battle at the Severing Mundane tier had erupted in the clan. So just how devastating was the damage? Most importantly, this was the ancestral shrine of the Ding clan, and the memorial tablets and remains of the Ding clan's ancestors were placed here. Now that it had been bombarded, all of the ancestral tablets had naturally toppled over. Ling Han didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy. In the past, the Ding clan had coveted the Hu clan's celestial techniques, and had fabricated evidence of their crimes. This had led a celestial king tier level force to intervene and wipe out the Hu clan. What kind of sin was this? Even if they were dead, he naturally couldn't allow them to be properly worshipped. Their names should go down in history as infamy. The Ding clan was filled with grief and fury. This Han Lu was far too domineering. He had actually destroyed even the memorial tablets of their ancestors. Moreover, he had even wounded and killed so many people. Of course, the person they hated the most was still Ling Han. If it weren't for Ling Han's mocking words, would Han Lu have become so furious? They naturally thought that this was because of the provocation just then. However, how could they have imagined that there was a deeper reason behind this? Ding Hu retreated, and he charged toward Ling Han. He was going to capture this brat, and then beg for forgiveness from the Han clan. Everything was Ling Han's fault. How innocent was their Ding clan? That was right. Ling Han hadn't paid his respects to the ancestors yet, so he couldn't be considered a member of the Ding clan at all. No matter what, they couldn't be implicated because of him. Despicable brat. I knew that nothing good would come out of your presence. Ding Hu's eyes were bloodshot. He was destined to swallow this grievance. How could he possibly demand compensation from the Han clan? Thus, he could only vent his anger by killing Ling Han. If he knew that this was all part of Ling Han's plan, he would probably die from anger. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, "Old geezer, I've already tolerated you for a long time. Come." Pung. Ding Hu sent Ling Han flying with a single strike. However, something astonishing happened. Ling Han actually didn't shatter into pieces, and he looked completely unscathed. Right now his physique was far too powerful. Even a first Severance Grand Elder could only dream of killing him with brute force. Only by using the power of regulations could they slowly refine him. Keep acting, keep acting. A cold smirk appeared on Han Lu's face. Isn't it easy for a first Severance Grand Elder to kill a Genesis tier? However, you haven't even caused Ling Han to vomit blood with a single strike. Your acting is far too clumsy. Ding Yaolong sighed and said, "Brother Han, you've gone too far." If he still didn't come out, the Ding clan would really be done for. Chapter 1725. Ding Yaolong's appearance instantly made Han Lu feel as if he was facing a formidable enemy, and he didn't dare to make another move. Though Ding Yaolong was a fourth severance from a small clan, and in terms of celestial techniques, he definitely couldn't compare to the severing mundane tier of a 3-star clan. However, being able to reach the severing mundane tier in a small clan meant that his natural talent was definitely extraordinary, and was enough to make up for the gap in celestial techniques. This was a formidable opponent. Han Lu looked at Ding Yaolong coldly. He felt like there was no need for him to waste his breath. If he couldn't deal with Ding Yaolong, he could just ask the dividing soul tier elites of his clan to help him. After all, how could they be unable to deal with the severing mundane tier force? "Brother Han, is there some misunderstanding?" Ding Yaolong asked with a dark expression. As long as the Ding clan was in the right, there was no need for them to fear the Han clan. Otherwise, would the Fu family just sit there and let other forces bully them? It was one thing to fight within the family, but it was another thing to be bullied. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Han Lu was similarly furious. How dare you tell me it was a misunderstanding? Are you playing with me like a monkey? Misunderstanding your face. Ding Yaolong could be considered an extremely intelligent person, but he couldn't understand why Han Lu would be so angry. He should be the one angry, not Han Lu, right? He was truly enraged. The ancestral tablets had been toppled, so this enmity was naturally huge. "Brother Han, please calm down. I'll send you out of Dark Moon City." Even though the Han clan was in the wrong in this matter, Ding Yaolong did not dare to do anything to Han Lu. He could only ask Han Lu to leave the city, so that he would not be able to kill him again. Ha 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 ha. Han Lu chuckled coldly and said, "Your Ding clan is truly audacious. You're merely a severing mundane tier force, yet you actually dare to challenge our Han clan? I'm truly impressed." He said that he was impressed, but his face was filled with anger and disdain. Ding Yaolong's expression was gloomy. "You've almost dug up the ancestral graves of my Ding clan, yet you're reprimanding me instead. Even if you're from a 3-star force, you still can't bully others like this. Then I'll have to offend you." He brazenly attacked, wanting to capture Han Lu and drive him out of Ashen Moon City. Han Lu naturally wouldn't back down. He immediately engaged Ding Yaolong in a fierce battle. Both of them were Fourth Severance Grand Elders, and their strength was boundlessly powerful. In terms of true strength, Ding Yaolong was slightly stronger. After all, with his talent, even if he couldn't become an Immortal Palace tier elite in a 3-star force, he would still be qualified to advance into the Dividing Soul tier. They were both at the 4th Severance, but he was a whole level stronger. However, the problem was that this was the ancestral shrine of the Ding clan. Even though more than half of it had been destroyed, there were still a large number of Ding clan clansmen. Moreover, the entire area was the territory of the Ding clan. Thus, Ding Yaolong naturally did not dare to act rashly. However, Han Lu had no such qualms. All he needed to do was unleash his full strength. The two of them were locked in battle, and even the 4th Severance elites of the Long and Duan clans were startled. They all ran over to mediate. No matter what, this was still the territory of Dark Moon City. When it came to external matters, the three great clans would stand together through thick and thin. Otherwise, the Black Moon sect would also punish them in the future. With the two of them interfering, Han Lu was naturally no match for them, and could only stop. He coldly swept his eyes over the 3 4th Severance elites, and menacingly said, "Good, you all want to become enemies with my Han clan, is that so? Brother Han, is there some kind of conflict that can't be resolved?" The Long family patriarch asked. Han Lu said, "Ask him." He pointed at Ding Yaolong. "Ask me?" Ding Yaolong was completely baffled. "You've already destroyed the ancestral shrine of my clan, and yet you're asking me? How am I supposed to know what's wrong with you?" He waved his sleeve and said, "I don't know anything. I only know that my Ding clan was almost destroyed by you." Han Lu was just about to say something, yet he suddenly shot a glance at Ding Yaolong. His hair stood on end, and his hand trembled as he pointed at Ding Yaolong. Good, good, good. You've got guts. You've really got guts. What's going on?" Ding Yaolong and the others turned around at the same time, only to see a man and a large black dog standing in the distance. Apart from them, there was no one else. What's wrong with this? It's actually causing Han Lu to tremble in anger. How could Han Lu not be excited? Ling Han was the culprit who had killed Han Qi. Now that detestable large black dog that had bitten his buttocks was actually siding with Ling Han. What did this mean? Everything was caused by the Ding clan. How audacious! They actually dared to toy with me and the Han clan like this. "I'll kill you!" Han Lu roared, his eyes bloodshot as he charged at Ding Yaolong. This time, he was truly enraged. He had been famous for many years, yet his buttocks had actually been bitten by a large black dog. Even his buttocks had been exposed. This was an extraordinary humiliation. Ding Yaolong was completely baffled, and he was also extremely innocent. However, Han Lu had already charged at him with his life on the line, so how could he not fight back? He had no choice but to intervene. Meanwhile, the elites from the Long clan and Duan clan continued to mediate between the two, and the situation descended into chaos. In the distance, Mao Dai wore a strange expression. This was because he was at least 80% certain that all of this was caused by Ling Han. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't figure out what was going on. What right did Ling Han have to make Han Lu shift his hatred onto the Ding clan? Hang on. Why did Ling Han insist on joining the Ding clan? Could it be that this was the crux of the matter? He suddenly came to a realization. The Han clan had already caused trouble for the Ding clan several times. This wasn't a secret. Apparently, one of their clansmen had been killed while training in the ancient realm, and that person was from the Ding clan. If Ling Han was that person, then everything would make sense. Of course, there were still some details to consider. For example, how had Ling Han entered the ancient realm? It had to be known that only a Dividing Soul tier elite could accomplish such a feat. Han Lu attacked in a frenzy, but he was still unable to defeat 3 elites at the same cultivation level. The battle came to a halt once again. He was like a wounded wolf that wanted to take a bite out of anyone. Ancestor. At this moment, Ding Song and Ding Shan flew over. The battle just then had been far too intense, and they didn't dare to approach at all. "What's the matter?" Ding Yaolong asked coldly. The crux of everything should be that despicable brat. The two elites from the Ding clan pointed at Ling Han. They hadn't realized this at first, but now that Ling Han was standing together with the large black dog, they finally understood most of what was going on. If it weren't for the large black dog drawing Han Lu over, how could so many things have happened? Ling Han hadn't chosen other clans, and had instead insisted on joining them. This was a complete and utter conspiracy. What? Ding Yaolong couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. The ancestral graves of their clan had been raised, and the culprit behind all of this was a measly Genesis tier cultivator. Han Lu was also slightly confused upon hearing this. This was because Ding Yaolong's astonished expression didn't seem to be an act. How could a fourth Severance Grand Elder be so easily moved? The four elites instantly rushed toward Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, Han Lu Ding Yaolong, congratulations on becoming the greatest idiots in history. Chapter 1726. Ha 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 ha. The large black dog was rolling on the ground with laughter. Upon hearing Ling Han's words and seeing the large black dog's reaction, Ding Yaolong and Han Lu were both enraged to the extreme. Abominable, abominable boy, if they still couldn't figure out that all of this was Ling Han's doing at this time, then they would really be unworthy of being fourth Severance Grand Elders. Their eyes were all spitting fire. A dignified fourth Severance Grand Elder was actually being toyed with like a monkey. This was preposterous. This brat was really audacious. He was merely in the Genesis tier, yet he actually dared to be so impudent. Where did you get the courage? A lunatic. Mao Dai and the others were also flabbergasted. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that Ling Han was the one who had caused all of this. Most importantly, he actually dared to admit to it, and even provoked them. Toying with two fourth Severance Grand Elders was indeed a great sense of accomplishment. But did you not want your life anymore? Ding Hu roared and charged at Ling Han again. He hated Ling Han to the bone. His eyes were red, and he looked like he wanted to skin Ling Han alive. In this world, Ling Han was probably the only Genesis tier that could anger a severing mundane tier Grand Elder to such an extent. Bang bang bang. Ding Hu launched a flurry of attacks, while Ling Han assumed a defensive stance. His battle prowess was far from being a match for a first Severance Grand Elder, so he could only forcefully endure the attacks. However, his physique was too strong, and such a blow couldn't even make him vomit blood. Everyone was overwhelmed with shock, and there were even sounds of saliva being swallowed. This was too inconceivable. The defenses of a Genesis tier cultivator could actually be this powerful? Who would believe that Ding Hu was still acting at this time? Humph. Han Lu sneered. He made a grabbing motion towards Ling Han. Boom. His hand transformed into a pitch-black mountain that was surrounded by the Great Tao. It was incomparably terrifying. The situation is tense. Let's pull back. The large black dog hurriedly broke into a run. He was extremely slippery, and as his four legs flew through the air, he ran incredibly quickly. Let's hitch a ride. Ling Han grabbed onto the large black dog's tail, who, because of the large black dog's high speed, his entire body fluttered like a flag. Hurry up and let go, you're too heavy, the large black dog yelled. Brat, didn't you poop in the morning? Your stomach is full of poop. Don't worry, I believe you. Ling Han laughed. Grandpa Dog doesn't believe in himself. The large black dog spat out his tongue as he sprinted away. Hung behind them, the large hand pressed down, but struck empty air. The large black dog's speed was really incredible, as expected of someone born to do bad things. Trying to run? Ding Yaolong charged over. His entire body was wrapped in the laws, and even his body couldn't be seen. No one could understand the hatred in his heart. The ancestral shrine had been destroyed, yet the person who had done this was completely powerless. Moreover, the culprit was actually a measly Genesis tier cultivator. Moreover, he had personally agreed to recruit this cultivator into the Ding clan. He had to take the blame. Motherfucker, he was the eternal sinner of the Ding clan. Xiao. His body accelerated, and he was actually even faster than the large black dog. This was because he had ignited his life force to forcibly increase his speed, although this speed could only be maintained for a short period of time, as long as he could stop Ling Han. How could a measly Genesis tier cultivator escape from his grasp? Die. He roared in fury as he viciously pressed his palm toward Ling Han. Han Lu's heart jolted. He had initially wanted to stop Ding Yaolong, because it was possible that Ling Han still possessed the secrets of a celestial king tier cultivation technique. However, after thinking for a moment, he decided that it was fine if Ding Yaolong was dead. As long as he extracted the fragments of Ling Han's soul in time, he would still be able to learn all of Ling Han's secrets. Moreover, the Ding clan was indeed innocent. He had just destroyed their ancestral shrine, so he naturally felt slightly guilty. Of course, if the strongest member of the Ding clan was only at the third severance, he wouldn't have taken this matter to heart. However, the important thing was that Ding Yaolong was stronger than him. Thus, he naturally felt slightly apprehensive. What if Ding Yaolong fought him to the death? There was a huge difference between being in the right and being in the wrong. Boom! The large hand descended, sealing off all escape routes. At the very least, with the large black dog's current speed, he couldn't escape. A faint smile appeared on Ling Han's face as he suddenly kicked the large black dog's backside. Pung! With the large black dog's current speed and the power of his kick, the large black dog instantly accelerated, escaping from the range of Ding Yaolong's attack by a hair's breadth. Pung! The large hand descended, causing the entire Dark Moon City to tremble violently. The mortals were all in a state of panic. The celestial realm was far too stable, and there were no earthquakes or landslides. Thus, there had to be a battle between elites that could cause such a commotion. If the shockwaves swept over, anyone who came into contact with them would definitely die. Ah, little Han, you died so tragically. In the distance, the large black dog touched his iron underwear. There was a clear footprint on it, and it was clear just how powerful Ling Han's kick had been. He patted his chest and howled dryly. For Grandpa Dog, you sacrificed yourself. What a noble little Han. Rest in peace on your way to the Yellow Springs. Grandpa Dog will definitely burn a few beautiful paper dolls for you. As for revenge, these two old baldies have committed many evil deeds, so they'll definitely die very quickly. There's no need for Grandpa Dog to make a move. It's a pity about those treasures you have. If you had known that you were going to die, you might as well have let Grandpa Dog have them. The large black dog's words became more and more outrageous. His eyes shone, and he was already coveting the treasures on Ling Han. The violent power dissipated, and the billowing dust also slowly settled. When everything became clear, everyone's expressions were filled with disbelief. Ling Han stood proudly poo. Many people instantly spluttered. Are you really a fucking Genesis tier? You only treated the attack of a first Severance Grand Elder as a back massage? This is something that everyone can accept, but you can even withstand the attack of a fourth Severance Grand Elder? You're practically a freak. There was a faint smile on Ling Han's face, yet he was laughing bitterly in his heart. As expected of a fourth Severance Grand Elder, just a single strike from him had completely depleted the origin power in his body. If Ding Xiaolong unleashed another attack, he wouldn't be able to circulate the indestructible Heaven's Scroll to withstand it. Huh, little Han, you're not dead? The large black dog rubbed his empty eyes and said, You made me cry for you. Tell me, how are you going to compensate Grandpa Dog? Heh. Ling Han chuckled and ignored the large black dog. Instead, he turned to Han Lu and Ding Yaolong and said, What kind of fourth Severance Grand Elder are you two? One of you couldn't even touch the corner of my clothes, while the other couldn't even scratch the corner of my clothes when I took the attack head-on. Sigh, I really feel ashamed for the two of you. You've lived so many years for nothing. Woof, the large black dog barked in displeasure in the distance. However, he didn't dare to pounce over and bite them due to his apprehension toward the two elites. Han Lu and Ding Yaolong both wore dark expressions. Both Ling Han and the large black dog's performances had far exceeded their expectations. One possessed the ability to teleport, while the other possessed heaven-defying defenses. Who on earth are you? Han Lu asked in a low voice. Firstly, without the help of a dividing soul tier elite, it would be impossible for a Genesis tier to enter the ancient realm. Secondly, if he weren't the heir of a supreme sect, how could he possess such heaven-defying techniques that allowed him to repeatedly escape from the attacks of fourth Severance Grand Elders? severing mundane tiers, should be able to crush Genesis tiers. No matter who you asked, the answer would be the same. This man and dog were far too extraordinary. They definitely had powerful backgrounds. Was even more refreshing. Chapter 1728. In fact, Ding Yaolong didn't know that Ling Han wouldn't be able to withstand his ferocious attacks. Although he had taken Ding Yaolong's attack head-on just then, he had already expended all of his origin power. However, Ding Yaolong thought that Ling Han's defenses were so powerful that even a severing mundane ancestor couldn't injure him. Thus, he directly used the power of regulation to refine him. Flowing light swift shadow void escape divine technique. Ling Han yelled. Xiao. He entered into the Black Tower. A fourth Severance Grand Elder was far too terrifying. They would only need a short while to refine him with the power of regulation. A living person had suddenly disappeared. Ding Yaolong's expression was dark. Under his refinement, even spatial movement should have been sealed, unless the other party was stronger than him. However, if Ling Han was stronger than him, why would he need to run? How had he disappeared? Under the circumstances just then, even a spatial god tool would have instantly exploded. Thus, the problem became unsolvable. Where was he? Xiao. The two fourth Severance Grand Elders, Han Lu Long and Duan, all leaped over. Their expressions were also filled with curiosity and confusion. How had a living person disappeared under such circumstances? Did he really teleport away? The four elites all guessed. This was probably the most logical conclusion. There's no aura of this junior in Dark Moon City, Han Lu said coldly. His eyes were fixed on the large black dog. He had been bitten in the buttocks, so how could he easily forget this grudge? However, Ling Han was far too important. Not only had he killed a junior of the Han clan, but he had also possessed a Celestial King tier secret technique. Gasp! He suddenly thought of a possibility. Was it possible that Ling Han was actually the heir of a Celestial King tier force? That was why he could use all kinds of mysterious techniques. Moreover, if he hadn't come from a top-notch sect, how could he have cultivated such temperament, bearing, and control? Han Lu felt slightly guilty. After all, it wasn't just Ling Han. Even the large black dog was incredibly strange. He seemed to be at the Genesis tier, yet he possessed abilities that even severing mundane ancestors couldn't do. If he was a descendant of a celestial king, then it would make sense. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. He directly grabbed Han Chi and ran. He had to report this matter to the clan's old ancestor, and let the old ancestor make a decision. His level was already far from enough. Ding Yaolong did not stop them. So what if he stopped them? Could it be that he could force them to compensate for the Ding clan's losses? Ding, who was still screaming in pain, but his aura was getting weaker and weaker. The nine heavens flame burned his soul, making him indestructible. A mighty severing mundane tier Grand Elder had actually died at the hands of a Genesis tier. This was most likely a first in the celestial realm, and had also permanently nailed Ding Hu to the pillar of shame. In the future, he would use this as a counterexample. On a certain year, on a certain month, Ding Hu, a first Severance Grand Elder, was killed by a Genesis tier ancestor. Ding Hu uttered his final words. Hong, his soul was completely incinerated, and his flesh shell was also unable to be preserved. It was also incinerated into ashes by the nine heavens flame, leaving not a single trace in this world. Ding Yaolong clenched his fists, his eyes spitting fire. Ancestor? Ding Song and Ding Shan asked cautiously. Everyone move out. Search for this brat, and kill him without mercy, Ding Yaolong said solemnly. Understood. The Ding clan had gone mad. In a single day, their ancestral shrine had been destroyed, and another severing mundane tier Grand Elder had been killed. Their losses were indescribably great. Taking advantage of the fact that all the elites were searching for him in the city, Ling Han boldly exited the Black Tower. Though he encountered a few Ding clan disciples on his way, he dealt with them all with a single strike. Now, who below the severing mundane tier was a match for him? After exiting the Ding clan, he once again entered the Black Tower, completely concealing his aura. When the elites of the Ding clan arrived, Naturally, no one would be able to find out. After doing this a few times, Ling Han went to the barracks to pay his respects to Mao Dai. He wanted to ask Mao Dai for a favor and send him out of Dark Moon City. The Ding clan would definitely be guarding the exit of the city, so it would be slightly difficult for him to leave. However, if Mao Dai made a move, then aside from Ding Yaolong, who could stop him? You really are a freak. When it came to Ling Han, Mao Dai shook his head repeatedly, his expression filled with astonishment. To be honest, even if it were him, he wouldn't be able to escape so easily after playing around with 2 4th Severance grade elites. Ling Han smiled and said, "Senior is too kind. Do you want to hide at my place for a while?" Mao Dai asked with a smile. Although he was only at the 3rd Severance, he wasn't afraid of the 3 great clans. This was because he had already established a certain amount of connections with the Fu clan. Once he advanced to the 4th Severance, he would leave this place and search for a stronger path. Ling Han shook his head and said, "I want to ask Senior to help me leave the city." Mao Dai faltered slightly, and an expression of astonishment spread across his face. "You want to go to the Severing Mundane Pool?" "Yes." Ling Han nodded. Mao Dai looked like a freak. How long had it been since this guy advanced to the consummate level of the Genesis tier? Yet he was already thinking about advancing to the Severing Mundane tier. He solemnly said, "You have to think this through. The Severing Mundane tier isn't so easy to execute. If you're not careful, you'll be severing your own life." Which consummate level of the Genesis tier didn't have to spend hundreds of millions, or even billions of years to prepare before they dared to execute that strike. Even if Mao Dai was a prodigy, he had only advanced to the Severing Mundane tier when he was 7 million years old. And when had he broken through to the consummate level of the Genesis tier? He admitted that Ling Han was more talented than he was. However, no matter how talented Ling Han was, how could he complete his 7 million years of accumulation in just over a year? Mao Dai really didn't believe it. Ling Han smiled and said, "Rest assured, Senior. I know what I'm doing." "You really have to know what you're doing?" Mao Dai thought for a moment, but ultimately didn't try to persuade him any further. This was because Ling Han's previous series of performances had been far too astonishing. Who could have imagined that a Genesis tier could actually withstand the furious attack of a 4th Severance Grand Elder? Then, it wouldn't be strange if Ling Han could create a few more miracles. "Fine, I'll send you out of the city." Mao Dai didn't waste any words, and directly led Ling Han out of the city. He had prepared a chariot, and Ling Han sat in it. Just like that, they swaggered toward the city gates. The chariot traveled very quickly, and very quickly arrived at the city gates. However, it was stopped by someone. "Brother Mao." Ding Shan stood guard here, and he first clasped his hands in Mao Dai's direction, and asked, "Why do you suddenly want to leave the city?" "I still need your permission to leave the city," Mao Dai said coldly, not giving him any face. Ding Shan's expression involuntarily darkened. However, when he thought that Mao Dai wasn't someone to be trifled with, he suppressed his anger, and said, "Brother Mao, please open the carriage and spatial god tool for me to inspect." "What if I say no?" Mao Dai asked calmly. "Please cooperate, Brother Mao," Ding Shan emphasized. He knew that Mao Dai valued Ling Han very much, so he definitely wouldn't allow Mao Dai to directly leave the city like this. If Mao Dai allowed Ling Han to escape, then it would really be too late for regrets. Mao Dai thought for a moment, but suddenly relented and said, "Fine." Chapter 1729. Mao Dai's actions were far too decisive, and Ding Shan was unable to accept this. However, he didn't hesitate and simply said, "Excuse me," before boarding the carriage. Ding Shan used his divine sense to search the carriage, but didn't find anything. He searched again, but still didn't find anything. After searching for the 3rd time, he alighted from the carriage and said, "Brother Mao, please allow me to search your body." Mao Dai smiled calmly and raised his hands, indicating that Ding Shan could do as he pleased. Yet he was astonished in his heart, because he had personally seen Ling Han board the carriage, but now Ding Shan actually had not discovered Ling Han. This was really incredibly strange. No wonder Ling Han had been so confident, and had told the Ding clan to search him. In reality, Ling Han didn't even need to borrow his hand to leave the city. There were many carriages leaving the city every day, and Ling Han had the ability to sneak onto any carriage and leave without anyone noticing. He smiled slightly. This was probably Ling Han bidding farewell to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know if he left silently. This brat was interesting. In reality, Mao Dai didn't have a spatial god tool on him, so Ding Shan naturally didn't find anything. He looked at Mao Dai in surprise. Could it be that this person was really just going to leave the city for a stroll? Can I go now? Mao Dai asked calmly. Brother Mao, please. Ding Shan had the guards at the city gates step aside. Mao Dai boarded the carriage, and they set off once again. Ding Shan stood on the city walls. After the carriage disappeared into the distance, he suddenly leaped down and followed it. He felt that it was strange that Mao Dai would leave the city at this time. Coupled with the relationship between Ling Han and Mao Dai, he instinctively made this decision. Though he was standing very far behind, he could sense that if Ling Han was truly hiding in the carriage, he would be able to catch him as soon as he revealed himself. However, Mao Dai seemed to truly be sightseeing. 10 or so days had passed, and they were still hurrying on their way, causing Ding Shan's patience to wear thin. He couldn't place all his bets on Mao Dai. What if he was just bait? Thus, he finally gave up after following them for another 3 days and turned back. Kid, you can come out now. He naturally knew that Ding Shan was following them. Though Ding Shan thought that he had concealed himself very well, he was the strongest prodigy after Ding Yaolong. However, Ling Han did not show himself. Only after half a day did he suddenly appear. It couldn't be helped. When Mao Dai had been speaking just then, Ling Han had been flirting with the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, so he couldn't possibly stop. Thus, he could only trouble this senior to wait for a while. Ling Han naturally wouldn't mention this matter and said, "Thank you for sending me off, senior." Mao Dai chuckled and said, "Even without my help, it wouldn't be difficult for you to escape. In a few months' time, I'll be escorting Zhang Chong to the Severing Mundane Pool. At that time, if you see Zhang Chong there, please help him if you can." "Definitely," Ling Han replied with a straight face. Then he asked, "Senior, does one only need to enter a special place for the first time in the Severing Mundane tier?" Mao Dai nodded and said, "Generally speaking, one only needs to go to a special place for the first time to sever one's mundane tier, because only heaven and earth has this kind of power that can sever one's mortal bonds. However, after the first time, there will be this kind of power in your body, so you don't need to go to special places in the future. However, some people are limited by their talent, so they will indeed go to places like the Severing Mundane Pool to comprehend the mysterious power of heaven and earth again, and then sever a second or a third time." Ling Han gave an "oh" before bowing respectfully to Mao Dai and saying, "Senior, I'll be taking my leave." Mao Dai waved his hand and said, "Go." After saying this, he felt a little regretful and said, "I originally intended to betroth my daughter to you, but it's a shame that you're too fond of causing trouble, so I can't be at ease." Ling Han couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine, and he hurriedly quickened his pace. He really didn't want to attract any more lovers. Right now, these beauties were enough for him to torment. He walked for many days, and after completely leaving the sphere of influence of Dark Moon City, he summoned the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. He couldn't keep them cooped up in the Black Tower, after all. The three of them journeyed together happily. A dozen or so days later, they arrived at another city. After entering the city, they boarded a large ship. This would save them a great deal of time on the journey. Otherwise, when they reached the Severing Mundane Pool, it would be about the time when this mystery realm would open. Ling Han and the Empress made the best use of their time to consolidate their comprehension. There was only over a year's time, and if they couldn't obtain enough comprehension, they would have to wait another 10 million years, or go to other mystery realms to sever their mundane. Because they didn't lack star stones, they bought saintly medicines wantonly. In any case, they were cheap. Ling Han's alchemy was practically wasteful. He abandoned the most precious part of the saintly medicine that contained the comprehension of heaven and earth, and only kept the part that could increase the accumulation of origin power. Otherwise, the time needed to concoct this alchemical pill would be incomparably long. He and the Empress took alchemical pills every day, and they could take more even if they reached the peak stage of the consummate level of the Genesis tier. This was accumulation. Breaking through to the severing mundane tier was a huge consumption, and without enough accumulation of origin power, it was possible that they would be sucked dry when breaking through. That would be too unjust. The Empress had already entered the final stage. Now she was only waiting to sever the mundane, and Ling Han was still increasing the accumulation of origin power. When the ship traveled for a month, he finally reached the peak stage of the Genesis tier. 10 billion heavenly bodies. He didn't stop, and continued to increase the number of heavenly bodies. This was accumulation. Presently, the more heavenly bodies he had, the more they wouldn't increase his battle prowess after advancing to the severing mundane tier, but they could provide a large amount of origin power reserves when breaking through to the severing mundane tier. Another 3 months later, Ling Han and the Empress disembarked from the ship. They arrived at Scattering Moon City. This was one of the outermost cities under the rule of the Black Moon sect. If they went any further, they would enter the territory of the Shao clan of 100 Magnificent City, and the Severing Mundane Pool was over 30,000 miles away from Scattering Moon City. Theoretically, the Severing Mundane Pool should belong to the territory of the Black Moon sect, but because it was a borderland, and added with the special effect of this mystery realm of heaven and earth, not to mention the Shao clan of 100 Magnificent City, even members of the Fu clan who wanted to break through to the Severing Mundane tier would specially come here. In the territory under the rule of the Fu clan, the Severing Mundane Pool was the best mystery realm for Severing Mundane tier. At this time, there was still a year's time until the Severing Mundane Pool opened. Thus, there were already innumerable peak stage Saint Kings in Scattering Moon City, waiting to challenge the most important test of their lives in a year's time. If they could advance one step further, they would be able to be called an elite even in the celestial realm, and from then on, they would truly escape the fate of old age, sickness and death. However, if they couldn't take this step, there was a 99% chance that they would sever their own life. This place was overcrowded, though those that would come to this city were all subordinate forces of the Black Moon sect. Even so, there were still many forces that had irreconcilable feuds. Battles frequently broke out in the city, and from time to time, one could see chaos in the mountains, with corpses lying everywhere. Ling Han and the Empress kept a very low profile, and quietly cultivated as they waited for the Severing Mundane Pool to open. Another 10 months passed, and they left the city, heading towards the Severing Mundane Pool. Chapter 1730. Turning back time slightly, somewhere in the celestial realm, Rock Palace. Young Imperial Empress, Ling Han has already broken into the celestial realm. An ordinary-looking woman half knelt in front of Hunyeo, her expression filled with fervor. Their young Imperial Empress had already succeeded in the Severing Mundane tier 100 years ago, and furthermore, she had struck the heaven and earth, becoming a king among king tiers. Even among the holy sons and holy daughters of the other great sects, there were few that could rival such an achievement. In reality, even striking the heaven and earth had differences in strength. It depended on how thorough this strike was, and the more ruthless it was, the more powerful its battle prowess would be. Hunyeo lay lazily on the bench. She was the type of lazy person that definitely wouldn't stand if she could sit, and definitely wouldn't sit if she could lie down. Cultivation was really killing her. If it weren't for the fact that she was forced by an old witch every day, she would have long since gone to find Ling Han. Pa! Hunyeo instantly jumped up, laughing loudly. Where is Nyo's Ling Han? Hurry, 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 Nyo is going to find him. A look of fury appeared on the woman's face. Who was Ling Han? He was actually so worried about the young Imperial Empress. As far as she was concerned, the young Imperial Empress was the most perfect person in the world. No man was worthy of her. But young Imperial Empress had asked, so how could she not answer? In reply to young Imperial Empress, we don't know for now, the woman hurriedly said. When the doors to the celestial realm are opened, The location of entry is extremely random, and the celestial realm is too large, so it is relatively difficult to investigate. Niu doesn't care. All of you go out and find him. Niu wants to see Ling Han, who Niu bared her fangs and claws looking very fierce. Yes, young Imperial Empress. Very quickly, 12 Dragonhawk teams flew out from the Rock Palace. Each Dragonhawk team was led by an Immortal Palace tier elite, and they were accompanied by 10 guards. All of them were at the Dividing Soul tier, and they headed in different directions of the Celestial Realm. They had a mission, and that was to find a specific man in this boundless Celestial Realm. Ling Han and his group headed toward the Severing Mundane Pool. This was a mystery realm formed by heaven and earth, and its environment was usually extremely dangerous. No one could enter deep into it, as they would be easily killed by the violent power of heaven and earth. The Severing Mundane Pool would only open once every 10 million years. This opening meant that the majority of the power of heaven and earth in the Severing Mundane Pool would be within a controllable range, allowing people to enter deep into the depths of the Severing Mundane Pool. In that place, he would be able to sense the mystical power of heaven and earth of the Severing Mundane tier, and from there, he would be able to deliver a strike toward himself, or the heaven and earth. If nothing unexpected happens, the Ding clan, the Han clan, and the Xiao clan will all be waiting for me here. Ling Han rubbed his chin, and couldn't help but mutter, "Am I really so hated?" The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden instantly smiled. Her husband's ability to stir up trouble was indeed top-notch. A mere Genesis tier cultivator had already caused a 3-star force to suffer a setback, and he had even managed to escape unscathed. This was really not easy. Let's keep a low profile. The three of them were all clothed tightly, not revealing their true appearances. Moreover, they had controlled their auras, so even Severing Mundane ancestors would only be able to sense their auras at a very close distance, and thus recognize Ling Han's identity. The range of perception of Dividing Soul tier and Immortal Palace tier elites would definitely be wider. But would such elites come here? Perhaps there might be Dividing Soul tier. But if it was Immortal Palace tier? Ling Han shook his head. This was only the territory of a 3-star force, so there shouldn't be any great elites of Immortal Palace tier here. There was still a month or so before the Mystery Realm would open, yet there were already too many people gathered here. Though they were all under the rule of the Fu clan, there were indeed many conflicts between them. From time to time, battles would break out, and there would even be battles between Severing Mundane ancestors. Xiao Sheng is here! Someone suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Xiao Sheng? Who is Xiao Sheng? Many people were confused. What? Could it be that you guys haven't heard that Xiao Sheng defeated Changsun Liang 2 years ago? Changsun Liang? Changsun Liang of the Black Moon sect. Gasp! It had not even been 2 years, so it was impossible for the news of the battle between Changsun Liang and Xiao Sheng to spread throughout the territory under the rule of the Fu clan. Now that this was said, everyone was naturally astonished. Changsun Liang was extremely famous, and he was publicly acknowledged as a young king tier. Even in the Fu clan, there were no young people that could compare to him. Now that someone actually defeated Changsun Liang, it instantly caused a huge commotion. Could it be the Xiao clan of 100 Magnificent City? Yes, that Xiao clan. They are really incredible, having produced a prodigy that is even more powerful than Changsun Liang. In the future, he might even be able to advance to the Immortal Palace tier. Hehe, you guys don't know, right? In the recent few years, several prodigies have appeared in succession. Changsun Liang is already outdated. That's right. The Desolate North has produced Songji, and Heaven Holding City has produced Ma Yin. Both of them can be called king tiers. And the most astonishing is the Fu clan. They have produced a supreme divine fetus. All of a sudden, there was a collective gasp in the surroundings. Even in the celestial realm, the words divine fetus could not be used carelessly. This represented the most powerful physique in the world, and it was rare for even one to appear in billions of people. Who is it? Fu Xiaoyan. Not only is she a supreme divine fetus, she is also an outstanding beauty. A single look can make your soul fly away. Is she also coming here to Severing Mundane tier this time? Of course, if she misses this opportunity, she would have to wait another 10 million years. For young king tiers, the gap of 10 million years is too large. Perhaps her competitor has already become a second Severance. When Ling Han heard this, he couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Another divine fetus had appeared. There were two ways to become a divine fetus. The first was inborn, and this could only be done by one's father, mother, or ancestor. It was said that if one's ancestor had produced a celestial king tier, the possibility of giving birth to a divine fetus would be slightly higher. Otherwise, it would really require the heavens to open their eyes and run into the luck of several hundred lifetimes. The second was created after birth. For example, cultivating some kind of celestial king tier cultivation technique, like Gu Daoi, who had cultivated for 10 lifetimes. Who knew which was stronger, this divine fetus of the Fu clan or the Empress? Meanwhile, the Empress showed an expression of pride. She was certain that she would win. Ling Han gazed into the distance. He had arrived at Xiaosheng. Close to 2 years had passed, and Xiaosheng's injuries had naturally healed. Even if he had been severely wounded by Ling Han and the Empress at that time, the Xiao clan would still spare no expense to heal him, just like how the Black Moon sect had treated Changsun Liang. Xiaosheng had already completely swept away the disappointment he had felt when he had lost to Ling Han in that battle. Relying on his battle record of defeating Changsun Liang, he was full of pride and looked down on everyone else. As a king tier, he naturally had pride. Another few days passed, and more king tiers arrived in succession. Songji, a king tier that had recently appeared in northern Desolate City. His battle prowess was frighteningly powerful, and it was said that he was invincible below the severing mundane tier. Ma Yin, a prodigy of heaven-holding city, also had the reputation of being invincible. It was said that Songji and Ma Yin were cousins. Thus, the two great clans had the intention of forming a marriage alliance. Once this became a reality, it was estimated that they would form the strongest force under the rule of the Fu clan. And in the future, they might even be able to shake the rule of the Fu clan. There was also Fu Xiaoyan. She actually did not ask the elites of the Fu clan to accompany her. She sat alone on the mountain peak, her exquisitely beautiful face indeed causing one's heart to beat faster. There was a long sword placed horizontally on her lap, and she exuded a killing intent that would keep strangers away. Changsun Liang has arrived. Another 2 days passed, and the crowd was once again stirred. This time, it was far more enthusiastic than when Songji, Xiaosheng, and Fu Xiaoyan had arrived. After all, this was the publicly acknowledged king tier, and there was no other. Cell phones read more refreshingly. Chapter 1732. This young man was really arrogant. However, he indeed had the right to be proud. After all, he was already a first Severance Grand Elder at such a young age. This was far too astonishing. It was no wonder that he had been accepted as a disciple by the Return to Origin Palace. Changsun Liang, Xiaosheng, and the other king tiers were all extremely indignant, but the gap between celestials and mortals was too great, and no matter how freakish they were, they could not possibly make up for it. Even if Ling Han went up, it would also be useless. At most, he would only be able to ensure that they did not die. These king tiers all humphed coldly in their minds. After advancing into the severing mundane tier, who would be the true king tier? A disdainful smile appeared on Bei Xuanming's face as he said, "Master even specifically asked me to take this opportunity to see if there are any talents worth recruiting into the Return to Origin Hall. Haha, in my eyes all of them are trash." Damn, everyone was extremely displeased. "You are indeed a genius, but is there a need to be so sarcastic?" Bei Xianming was actually able to introduce people into the Returning to Origins Palace. That was a 4-star power. If they could join it, who wouldn't have to be respectful to them when they returned in the future? Thus, many people who were thick-skinned immediately went up to flatter Bei Xianming. Bei Xianming, on the other hand, was extremely cold and arrogant. He had only casually said that he had the qualifications to recommend people, but whether or not people could be sent to the Returning Origin Hall was not something he could decide. One had to know that only the best of the best in the 3-star forces were qualified to be recommended to the Gui Yuan Palace. Otherwise, they would have to pass the Gui Yuan Palace's disciple recruitment and become one of the few lucky ones. This was far too difficult. Only true kings could do it. Fu Xiaoyan remained calm and indifferent. Only when she was talking to Bei Xianming would she reveal a hint of a smile. What a waste, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden commented. That man isn't worthy of her. Ling Han couldn't help but smile and say, though he is a little arrogant, he has reached the severing mundane tier at this age, so he is not simple. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was still unconvinced, and only felt that Bei Xianming was an eyesore no matter what. Rumble. There was a deafening boom, and the ground cracked open like a mouth. The severing mundane pool had originally been a deep and serene valley, but now that it had cracked open, the valley had become countless times wider. It was so deep that the bottom could not be seen, and there were endless clouds and mist shrouding it. Even a severing mundane ancestor could not possibly see its depths. The severing mundane pool had officially opened. Ling Han immediately sensed a completely different power, but it was extremely weak. Power of the severing mundane tier. The Empress had also sensed it, and she looked at Ling Han. Ling Han nodded and said, "It should be, but the power here is too weak, so I can only barely sense it. I still have to enter the depths of the valley to understand it clearly." No wonder it was said that one had to enter the bottom of the severing mundane pool if they wanted to sever their mundane. Only at the bottom would there be enough mystical power of heaven and earth to unleash the saber strike. Boom! Like a tidal wave, the crowd flew into the valley. They were either at the Genesis tier or at the severing mundane tier. But there were definitely no dividing soul tier elites. Even if these people had escorted their juniors here, they would only wait outside. Why a mystery realm of heaven and earth, like the severing mundane pool, had a special effect on cultivators with high cultivation levels. The possibility of them dying here was far too high. Putting aside the fact that only severing mundane tiers were allowed here, even celestial kings would have to be careful here. So what were dividing soul tiers? Changsun Liang and Xiao Sheng were in no hurry to set off. They were both king tiers of the current generation, and had absolute confidence in themselves. So what if they were a few steps late? In a battle of the same cultivation level, who could be a match for them? "Sister Yin, let's go," Bei Xianming said proudly. He was already at the peak stage of the first severance, and added with the fact that he was an invincible king tier among his peers in the first place. He could naturally sweep through everyone in the severing mundane pool. He only had to be careful of the environment inside. Fu Xiaoyan nodded and walked side by side with Bei Xianming. Their clothes fluttered in the wind, and they appeared elegant and refined. It was as if they were a celestial couple, so beautiful that it was enviable. Zhongji and Ma Yin also followed. This pair were also king tiers, but neither of them had reached the severing mundane tier. Thus, their aura was undoubtedly suppressed by Bei Xianming, and they were not as dazzling as the two before them. Changsun Liang and Xiao Sheng also set off. They could also be considered enemies, and they stood side by side, both filled with hostility. One wanted to drag the other down from the position of king tier, while the other wanted to take revenge for what he had done previously. The smell of gunpowder was very strong. "Let's go as well." Ling Han arrived at Zhangchong and Mao Shuyu. They were following behind Changsun Liang, and when he recalled the promise he had made to Mao Dai, Ling Han decided to follow behind these two people first. However, what surprised Ling Han was that Mao Shuyu had actually come as well. She probably did not have enough accumulation, so she was still unable to severing mundane tier. This time, she had only come to experience the mystical power of heaven and earth. In this way, when she was truly able to severing mundane tier, she would have more experience and confidence. There was no path in the valley, and they could only continue to descend. At least an hour later, the ground finally appeared below them. However, it was really not easy to land. There were numerous stone spikes everywhere, and some of the stone spikes were still stained with fresh blood. Beside them, there were corpses that were still a little warm. Killing intent had already appeared. These stone spikes could not be touched. Even if you circulated your origin power to float in the air, and only stepped on thin air, your skin would still be pierced. And as long as your skin was pierced even the slightest bit, you would be dead for sure. Logically speaking, this was already no secret. It had already been concluded by those who had come before them innumerable years ago, but there were actually still people who died, which proved one thing. There would always be people who were too confident and insisted on seeking death. The three of them were about 5 kilometers behind Zhang Chong and the heavenly divine maiden. This just happened to be within the range of Ling Han's divine sense, and he could clearly see their every movement. The power of heaven and earth in the severing mundane pool was violent, so it was impossible to expand one's divine sense and vision too far. Thus, 5 kilometers was Ling Han's limit. It was frighteningly quiet along the way. Everyone was focused on hurrying on their journey. The severing mundane pool could not be open forever, and it would only remain open for about 3 months at a time. If they did not come out when the time was up, they would basically be dead. After all, even celestial kings would frown when the severing mundane pool returned to its violent state. As they continued down the valley, the surroundings did not darken. Instead, they became brighter. This was because some rocks were actually glowing. Light stone, it contains the great Tao of fire. To cultivators who cultivate in fire, this is an extremely rare treasure, Ling Han said to the two women as he flipped through the information in his mind. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden's heart throbbed. She had obtained the inheritance of the Phoenix King and was also skilled in manipulating fire. Thus, this light stone was considerably valuable to her. Ling Han tried to think of a way to obtain it, but the stone was too large, and it was buried deep underground. Moreover, there were also rocks protruding from the ground nearby, so it was not easy to approach and use force. Even a freakishly strong physique like Ling Han did not dare to act recklessly, and could only helplessly give up. It seems like they've encountered some trouble, Ling Han said. He discovered that Zhang Chong and Mao Shiyu had suddenly stopped in their tracks, and there were now 13 people in front of them. Chapter 1733. Ling Han didn't immediately approach them. As long as Zhang Chong and Mao Shiyu weren't in mortal danger, he wouldn't easily reveal himself. He did this because he didn't want to hurt their pride, and he also didn't want them to become dependent on him. This place was far too dangerous, and even Ling Han had to be extremely careful. How could he really become a babysitter? However, Zhang Chong and Mao Shiyu didn't waste too much time, and they didn't engage in any battles. They quickly passed through. That was because Zhang Chong had paid 10 star stones to each of them as toll money. Mao Shiyu was so furious that she could not help but stomp her feet in anger. She could not help but want to make a move, but was persuaded by Zhang Chong. There was a large disparity in the number of people on both sides, and this place was far too dangerous. If they were unlucky, they could lose their lives here. Thus they naturally had to use money to solve a problem. Moreover, the severing mundane pool was only open for a limited time, so they couldn't waste their precious time on a battle like this. Ling Han and the others also slowly walked over. It was as if they were here for a vacation. Halt! When they arrived in front of the 13 road robbers, they were stopped again. Ling Han pretended to be surprised and asked, "What?" "We've been short on money recently, and we want to borrow some star stones." "Brother, you won't be stingy to lend us some, right?" One of the road robbers said with a mocking smile. They were also sharp-eyed, and they could tell who they could provoke, and who they couldn't provoke with a single glance. Ling Han and the others chuckled. Sure. Ling Han immediately nodded. This caused the 13 road robbers to smile. They hadn't even threatened them, yet they were already afraid. They were definitely members of some small clan that had been overly protected since they were young. Their Genesis tier cultivation level was nothing more than that. "Wife, we've met a good person. He knows that we're poor, and he wants to give us star stones." Ling Han exclaimed in pleasant surprise, an innocent expression on his face. The 13 road robbers were all dumbfounded. "Is there something wrong with your ears?" "Brat, you're the one who gave us star stones." One of the road robbers couldn't help but correct him. That's right, you're the one who gave us star stones. Ling Han nodded, and even extended a hand. Fuck, the 13 road robbers felt incredibly conflicted. Can't this brat tell us apart? Aluba said, you're wrong. It's you. Oh no, it's us who gave you the star stones. Do you understand now? Ling Han continued to nod and said, that's right. Give us the star stones. He was spouting nonsense with a serious expression, causing the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden to have a hard time holding themselves back. They felt that this husband of theirs was really a bit evil. He had definitely been led astray by that large black dog. If the large black dog knew about this, he would definitely be extremely depressed. It was clearly Ling Han's dark nature. And what did it have to do with him? Brat, are you messing with us? The leader of the group, Lu Ba, finally reacted. You might be the only one stupid, but you can't expect these two women to be as stupid as you, right? But now neither of them said anything. This was clearly not right. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, at least you're not that stupid. You finally know. Detestable. The 13 road robbers were all enraged, and they all glared at him. Brat, if we fight here, do you know what the consequences will be? The leader of the group said coldly, if you're touched by any of the stone spikes in the surroundings, you'll immediately die. So just obediently hand over the star stones. It's not expensive anyway. It's only 100 star stones per person. TSK, the price has increased. However, Ling Han shook his head and said, 100 is too little. It's at least 10,000 per person. Huh? Is this brat being stupid again? The road robbers looked at each other in dismay. They couldn't understand why someone would complain about paying too little. However, they naturally didn't mind earning a bit more, so they all nodded in agreement. Ling Han stretched out his hand and said, 10,000 per person, so 13 people will be 200,000. Wife, am I right? He even turned around to ask the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the Empress. The two women naturally nodded in agreement. However, the road robbers were infuriated again. Brat, you're messing with us again. Shouldn't 13 people be worth 130,000? Someone muttered in a low voice. Don't waste your breath on him. Capture him and take everything he has. The leader of the road robbers said angrily. He immediately stretched out his hand and grabbed at Ling Han. The others also roared loudly. They had already endured for a long time. Pung 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 pung. Ling Han moved casually, and in just an instant, the 13 people were all knocked to the ground. If he hadn't used his origin power to support them, they would definitely have been killed by the stone spikes below. The road robbers were all scared silly. They hadn't thought that this second-generation nouveau riche, who looked like a noob, was actually pretending to be weak. His strength was incredibly powerful. They had kicked an iron plate. Ling Han smiled and said, 10,000 per person. Are you going to pay or not? Of course we'll pay. The road robbers said in unison. Ling Han nodded. He removed the suppression on the road robbers and allowed them to stand up straight again. The road robbers obediently paid up. 10,000 per person was already their limit. Some of them still didn't have enough, so they borrowed some from others. Only then did they manage to scrape together 10,000. Not only did they hand over all of their loot from the road robberies, but they also emptied out all of their savings from their wives and coffins. They all wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Their many years of hard work had all gone to someone else. Ling Han counted as he collected. After he finished collecting all 13, he couldn't help but say angrily, why is there 70,000 missing? Didn't these 13 people make 130,000? Young master, 10,000 per person. 130,000 is just right. The leader of the road robbers said with a bitter expression. Ling Han's expression darkened. Do you think I don't know how to count? There are 13 of us, so 10,000 per person? Isn't that 200,000? You really don't know how to count. The leader of the road robbers didn't dare to retort. It was obvious that Ling Han was deliberately toying with them. However, even though they clearly knew this, how could they dare to object? They could only scrape together more star stones. However, they only managed to scrape together 50,000 star stones. They were still 20,000 away from reaching 70,000 star stones. Left with no choice, they could only take out godly metal and saintly materials to make up for the difference. Ling Han's intention was to scrape them clean. After achieving his goal, he clapped his hands and left, leaving behind 13 people with bitter expressions. "Boss, should we continue?" someone asked. The leader of the road robbers grimaced, and he said, "Forget it. Let's just go back and obediently continue to be bandits with a bright future. This place is too dangerous. It's not suitable for us." The other road robbers all nodded. They had already been traumatized by Ling Han's actions. Ling Han's group of 3 continued on their way, and they quickly caught up to Zhang Chong and the others. They regained control of the area within a 5-kilometer radius. As they walked, the stone spikes that pierced through the air finally disappeared. Only rugged mountain rocks of all shapes and sizes remained. This was a slightly safer place. However, some of the mountain rocks had been disguised by demonic beasts. They had to be careful in case one of the rocks suddenly attacked them when they passed by. Their luck was quite good, and they didn't encounter such a situation on their way. After another 2 hours, they arrived in front of a mountain wall. The wall was filled with caves, and it looked like a beehive. These caves could all lead to the depths of the severing mundane pool. However, different paths had different risks. If they chose the most dangerous path, they could only pray for their own luck. Could it be that if they held back, this big bear would spare them? He drew the heavenly phoenix divine maiden into the black tower, and then leaped up, charging towards the large white bear. Boom! He unleashed the 9 heavens flame. This was the only method that could threaten a severing mundane tier at present. The Empress attacked viciously, and after only 2 moves, the little white bear let out an anguished cry. Its spirit had been destroyed. The large white bear instantly let out a deafening roar of fury. It charged towards Ling Han, wanting to crush everyone here. Ling Han used the lightning sword technique, and the regulations of the 9 heavens flame were attached to the sword chi, which was filled with destructive power. However, the large white bear was in the severing mundane tier, and demonic beasts were even more so born with powerful physiques. When the sword chi struck, it actually only managed to slice off a few tufts of white fur. Pa! Ling Han was sent flying by a palm strike. An intense pain shot through his body, causing him to grit his teeth. This guy was definitely not in the first severance, but rather in the second severance. Otherwise, he could not possibly be in so much pain that every bone in his body felt like it was about to break. Ling Han descended towards the Empress, and with a press of his hand, he drew her into the black tower. At the same time, he did not waste the little white bear, and also drew her into the black tower. The meat of a Genesis tier demonic beast was still very nourishing. The large white bear was driven mad with fury. These 2 humans had killed its cub, and not even its corpse was left. It launched a ferocious attack on Ling Han, and there was no way that it would allow him to leave alive. Ling Han and the large white bear fought to the death. He was about to break through to the severing mundane tier, and battling with a demonic beast of this level would definitely be very beneficial. And in the entire celestial realm, at least among those below celestial king tier level, only Ling Han could do this at the Genesis tier. Otherwise, who could face a second severance elite head-on? However, Ling Han did not have it easy either. His godly bones were far from being able to face a second severance elite. Every clash would cause cracks to appear in his bones, and the indestructible heaven scroll could not repair them in time, causing more and more cracks to appear on his bones. In the end, they completely collapsed. Ling Han channeled a drop of indestructible true fluid, and instantly healed his wounds. He was full of vigor again, but this was only a repeat of the process of him being tortured. Not long after, all of his bones were shattered again. This time, he did not channel the indestructible true fluid, and instead entered into the Black Tower. It was about time. He had already battled for a long time, and it was time to properly comprehend the process of the battle, and turn it into his comprehension. Under the reincarnation tree, Ling Han carefully experienced every detail of the battle as he healed his wounds, and deepened his understanding of the power of the severing mundane tier. Although he had battled with Ding Hu before, Ding Hu was too weak and could not wound him at all. Ding Yaolong was too strong and similarly could not have the effect of tempering him. As for the large white bear, it was just right. He was riddled with wounds, but his life was not immediately threatened. If I sever myself this time, I already have full confidence that I can perform a flawless severance. However, if I want to sever heaven and earth, I don't have the slightest confidence, Ling Han concluded. That was fine. He had not truly come into contact with the mystical power of heaven and earth yet, so he would definitely have another kind of comprehension when the time came. The three of them exited the Black Tower, and the large white bear had long since left. There were massive craters all around them, and presumably, the large white bear had vented its anger after failing to find Ling Han. They quickly left, and after less than half a day, they had probably already walked out of the large white bear's territory. However, there was still a vast expanse of whiteness around them, and the environment had not changed in the slightest. This place was far too unsafe, and Ling Han and his group encountered a few more waves of attacks on their way. Aside from the white bear, there were also snow eagles, ice wolves, and snow leopards. Some were at the Genesis tier, while others were at the Severing Mundane tier. If they were at the Genesis tier, he would directly kill them and store them in the Black Tower. Their flesh and blood were extremely nutritious, so he naturally could not waste them. If they were at the Severing Mundane tier, Ling Han would battle them to accumulate his comprehension. The Empress would also battle with First Severance demonic beasts. She had formed a divine fetus, and her 10 bodies could share the damage she received. Although her defenses could not compare to Ling Han's, they could still exchange a few blows with First Severance demonic beasts. The young couple advanced and battled as they advanced, and this caused the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden to feel incredibly envious. She was far from this kind of strength. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.